gonna steal all side, ride me, baby. I ain't never gonna stop. Come on now, baby. Ride me straight to the top. Yeah, straight to the top.
And technology.
No, you don't.
I'm in touch with technology.
No, you aren't.
Are we good levels? Good, good. Mom, pop. Bad ideas. Good stories. 22.
That's a double deuce. Yeah.
Don't do it in the wrong neighborhood.
You don't tell me what to do.
It's like we were talking about Saskatchewan. You know,
Yeah.
like gang culture, Saskatchewan. Chopper culture, Saskatchewan. Punk rock culture. It's all imported.
Mm-hmm.
Authentic Saskatchewan culture. We're like rednecks, you know.
Plaid jackets.
Plaid jackets, pickup
Saskatchewan
trucks.
camouflage.
Go Riders, go.
Mm-hmm.
Go
What more do you
Riders,
need,
go.
Pat?
What more do I need?
Hey, you don't like it, huh? Why don't you go back to wherever you came from?
Right, St. Paul's.
Not here. Yeah, exactly. About 6 miles from here. Yeah. It's Dusty and Pat. For anybody who's just their first time listening, I always forget that. Maybe somebody
I'm Pat.
just jumped in partway
That's
through.
Dusty.
And we're doing good, bad ideas, good stories. Holy fuck, hey,
BIGS,
it's our fucking thing, and I can't get it out. Bad ideas, good stories. So yeah, I got a few things written down I wanted to talk about today, or we could talk about. And you would definitely have some stuff. So
I didn't when we sat down. And all of a sudden,
me neither. And one of them was from like a couple weeks ago, even. And I'm like, well, this is still seems valid at any time.
Yeah.
But yeah, before we get into it, I guess.
The
What's
orange
new with you,
Cheeto,
man?
he's always valid.
Yeah,
He's always
exactly. Yeah, if
valid.
you get Trump news, we're always fucking down.
Degeneration into fascism in North America.
Holy piss
That one?
balls!
Okay.
She's happening full tilt now. Hey, like, well, okay, so you heard about the governor with the kidnapping plot against her, that Gretchen Whitmer, hey?
Yeah.
Well, which is insane.
And those totally not terrorists that were doing that?
Right. Hey? and that sheriff in that town, too, like on stage with them, like, they're just a bunch of good old boys, you know?
really?
They're always
I didn't
helping
see
us
that
out. We need a
part,
little
yeah.
extra hand. Well, I'll give them a call. You know, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I call these guys.
Yeah. No, so they plot this, they hatch this fucking plot to kidnap her and put her on trial and execute her. Like that that was the extent of the plot from what
Vigilante
I understand.
justice.
They were like, no, we think she's acting like a tyrannical regime, and that's what our whole shit's about. That's why we have militias, is so if the tyranny of the government comes down on us, we can fight back. And this is a tyrannical government that's been making us wash our hands. And some
that's what it was,
businesses,
the masks
it's about
and
this.
like-
Yep, it was about COVID, you know. And again, they can pile in whatever they want onto it. This was the straw, because these jerk-offs have been playing this game for fucking years out in the bush. They just finally had a target, right?
So tyranny wouldn't be defined as innocent people getting shot in the back by police, but being forced to wear gloves or masks to keep
It's
the
all
community
as
safe
thinly
is tyranny.
veiled fucking racist bullshit as it possibly can come. There's no logic to it. You can't have a discussion about it and go, well, if they think that's tyrannical, what do they think about this? Nothing. They're fucking morons. That's why they're here in the first place. That's why they're there. And I don't know if you saw any mugshots of these motherfuckers. Very shallow gene pool in that county. Very shallow gene pool. Two of them were brothers, but they all look like they were definitely cousins.
Yeah, cousin brothers.
Oh,
yeah.
fuck, man. So, so that's going on. And then you got the president having rallies and lock her up about this woman who was just the
victim of a kidnapping plot.
Absolutely, right? Like, nearly, if it had gone through the way they wanted to, they may have had her executed today.
Yeah, that's brutal.
You know what I mean? And he's going, yeah, I don't mind these chants to lock her up. And then you got fucking Laura Trump, who's Eric Trump's wife, coming on the news on Sunday on Jake Tapper's show going, well, he's just having a bit of a fun at a Trump rally. You know, that's just a bit of fun. It's like, do you guys ever get that there's repercussions and consequences to this fucking shit? Like, it's real life, and it's been happening the whole time. That fucking that governor that body slammed that reporter right the first year Trump was president, and he was like, yeah, it's a good thing he did that. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
You cannot body slam people at your fucking work. It's just not. It's against the rules. It's against the rules.
I saw a speech he was doing for military police and stuff like that, and he's like, well, you know, tough guys, if they happen to bang him up a little bit while getting him to the car, well, whatever happens.
This same guy, when they execute a no-knock warrant on Roger Stone, and they don't take him out forcibly, they just take him out by being with, I couldn't believe it was overblown. Why would they do that? No-knock warrant. What's he going to do? Where's he going to go? And they're like, well, he's going to destroy fucking evidence. That's what he's going to do. Same thing happens to that Breonna Taylor, where they're looking for her boyfriend, and she ends up fucking dead. Well, there's, you got to give the police some credit in these instances, hey?
Yeah.
And it's like, he didn't even get roughed up, Roger Stone. He just got picked up unexpectedly with a no-knock warrant. Hey, and you thought that was out of line. And pardon him for it, by the way.
So this is the degeneration into fascism
it's
in the
insane.
USA. But
It's-
just because it's happy red, white, and blue, well, generally happy for like the average white guy down there, you know, people don't recognize it as being the same thing.
See, I don't think it's even that they're happy. I don't even think any of them are even happy. None of them think the system works. Nobody down there's like, yeah, the system works. This is great. No, he's giving them a common enemy
That's a
that
good
they can
point.
rally behind. It's no one's doing well, and no one's lying thinking there. Even Trump isn't like with his campaign message being like, let's continue our 4 years of prosperity. Let's keep doing the things I was doing right. It's no, once you get me in again, I'm going to fix this stuff. I'm going to do it. And it's the same shyster routine the snake oil salesman does all the
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
right?
because-
Don't ask the people in the last town I was in how good it works. Ask this gentleman I brought with me.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to fix all these problems if you give me 4 more years. These problems have increased
They're your
over the
problems
last
now.
4
They're
years.
your problems
Like,
now.
yeah,
You-
you had the
yeah.
opportunity to do something and you didn't do anything.
And you can argue that, yeah, you can't systematically change fucking everything. But, I mean, the stuff that he's talking about, like even the build a wall bullshit, where is it? 4 years in, no Mexican payments on it, no fucking wall.
yeah.
Again, so we can't even start.
What happened
having
to
this,
your wall,
We
bro?
can't even start talking about this logically because again, this is like fanatical, religious fanatic level dedication to this man and anything he fucking. You can't talk to it. You can't talk to it, right? And again, I have trouble making fun of it even because it's.
I
so
know your hot
fucking
level
rank,
went up.
man.
I'm like a nice ease in,
Well,
you know.
because it's like we're
skipped
joking
the lube.
around,
We went
like
right
they
to
were joking
fucking-
around when it was a joke to vote in Donald Trump, and now you've got forced hysterectomies at the border. You've got every type of fucking horror imaginable happening now within the borders of the United States,
Yep.
and ultimately, this guy's in fucking charge.
So post election, I anticipate there's going to be a surge of people trying to escape the USA. I think that refugee, I don't know if it would be refugee status. Like, I want to move to Canada. I anticipate this, that there's going to be a lot of left-leaning Americans wanting to ditch the fucking USA. And you saw it when Hitler got to power in Germany. All the intellectuals and all the left-leaning individuals and the Jews that recognized his rhetoric said, I'm getting the fuck out of Dodge. And unfortunately, when it started being mass loads of people, they said, we're not taking you. We're not taking you. And that's when the atrocities happened because they're like, look,
So you
we're
got nowhere to
following.
go.
Yeah, we're following through on our party promises.
Yeah.
And
well,
nobody else will
what do they
take
do
you.
in that situation? Because I mean, nobody's taking Americans currently through airplanes.
Well, I
Because
guess
of the
with
fucking
the-
plague.
yeah,
so what
with
are they going
COVID,
to
where are they
walk
gonna
up
go?
here? We don't want them. Like I mean, or if we can't do it for whatever reason, we're going to go to Mexico.
Well,
the place that they've been demonizing for fucking years is the reason why that their society's falling apart. Is all of our jobs go
So all
to
of a sudden
Mexico,
Mexico
and they
has to
steal our
accept all
jobs
these
and they come up
Americans.
here, and you're going to go down there and live with them.
Yeah, right.
Okay. See how that works out.
Something I found very, very interesting is Trump was put on the spot by some reporter and given the opportunity to openly denounce like his, I guess, white power organizations, white supremacy, white separatists, and stuff like that. And he just turned the tables and just said, well, what about the left? What about Antifa? And I'm like, dude, that was your opportunity to just like come out and say, okay, I'm not a piece of shit. And instead, you just like doubled down and said, well, what about the left?
And that's what it
Like,
says about him. But that's also, again, him not doing that forcefully is also that dog whistle to everybody that's just waiting to fucking load that round. They're going, click, click. Oh, he said it. Or he didn't say it.
Stand
okay.
back and stand by, Proud Boys.
Exactly. Yep.
What
Yeah.
the fuck does stand back and stand by stand or mean?
What else could it
stand
mean?
by for what?
What
you
else could it mean?
Fucking meathead.
Right?
Yeah, that
And
that
that's
one blew
that's
my
how a
mind.
lot of these right wing people have looked at these militias for years. Even if they weren't pro militia or they weren't whatever, they were like, well, yeah, but when there's a time of need, you'll see the militia guys all come in when there's a flood and they bring their pickup trucks and they help everybody and they move sandbags.
If they're white
absolutely,
folks.
absolutely. The Hell's Angels do toy runs.
Yeah.
You want a loan? You know what I mean? That's not who you go to necessarily.
Yeah.
You need backup and you need military help. You don't necessarily go to the guys that showed up with the pickup trucks and the fucking sandbags.
Well, depending. They're like if they're good old boy community people, but they're only good old boy community people for the people they consider their community. If you're outside of their community, a different shade, a different language, a different sexuality, then you aren't their community.
Oh, and it's even easier now. A different political ideology, and you don't even have to agree to
Yes,
it. They just
yes.
have to think that's what
You're
are.
a fucking commie.
Yeah,
You know
this,
what I
this
mean?
Gretchen Whitmer's acting as acting in a tyrannical way.
Yeah.
Nope. No, in no way is she acting like a tyrant.
She's trying to maintain health of her
but
constituency.
they believe that.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
Well,
it's even less.
that
It's
was
even
the
less
thing.
than knowing your lineage, right?
They tried to get him to disavow QAnon.
QAnon.
That
as well.
was
Yes.
it. Yes.
Oh, that was a more recent one. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, well, I don't know anything.
I know.
about
I know
QAnon.
they're against pedophilia.
Yeah. Who's not against pedophilia?
Hey,
You fucking
yeah, because
meathead.
they keep manufacturing stories. But okay, so that kind of ties into one of the first things I had written down here.
Yeah, we originally had a plan of
was
something we touched on 2 weeks ago.
Well, this was the Hunter Biden news that recently came.
See, I don't
out.
know anything about
Okay,
that.
so this is something like, and Trump and that campaign has been nonstop trying to attack Joe Biden's family every opportunity they can. And like one of the most outrageous things I thought of was
Explain it to me like I'm a grade 5 kid, because I know nothing about Hunter Biden's situation.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, well here. Okay, so I'll start with I'll start close to now, and then I'll back up a little bit.
Simple words.
So when they did the actual presidential debate where they were both on the stage and Trump had COVID, even though he said he was tested for it and it was negative, and he didn't, and he lied the whole fucking time. It probably gave it to a bunch of people there. Him and his family, the only ones not wearing masks, by the way.
That time?
Yeah, that time. And then he starts making comments about Hunter Biden, who's Joe Biden's son, about his cocaine addiction.
Okay.
And but this is after Joe Biden makes a comment about my son's service, and he goes, "Oh, who Hunter? Who Hunter?" And he goes, "No, Bo. Bo's the son that died, I believe, in service."
Okay.
And Trump goes, "Well, I don't know Bo, but I know Hunter, and he's got a crack problem," or whatever the fuck he said right after that, right? And like the fact that he was just because again, it's not about knowing the person that's your opponent. They just want dirt. What's the dirty shit? And
Yeah.
it's like, well, I don't have any dirt
Smear
on the
politics.
dead soldier son, so I don't even have to know his name. Who? Bo? Who's that? I don't know who that is. Oh, that's not the one. That's not the one with the drug thing. Okay, then I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
You know. So,
Mr.
anyways,
Bone Spurs.
how this goes back is so when Biden was vice president, his son Hunter had gotten a job with a Ukrainian energy company called Burisma as a consultant, and by anybody's standards, paid much more than what his value would have been because he had no background in energy. He didn't. There was nothing about his
So
career.
it looked kind of like,
It
let's
definitely
place an American politician's kid in this position and give him a good job.
Exactly. Well, it looked like it was what looked like to more me than just getting him a job was that they wanted to see what kind of influence they could get by having a politician's kid. So it wasn't necessarily doing Hunter Biden a favor. This was he's going to do us a favor by maybe giving us access to his dad, right?
Well, that just makes sense.
And which there was even an email that was like, well, hopefully you can get us to have a sit down with your dad. And he's like, well, I don't know, maybe, But again, it was one of these things where he got paid for a while, and it was, the money he took out of it seemed unreasonable to me for what he was putting in. But that's what these glad-handing nepotism fucks all do at the top. This to me is nothing out of the ordinary.
It's wink, gun, and handshake dealing.
Exactly. And again, the thing that tied into this was that he did have a legit like crack cocaine problem, I believe, during this time as well. Like had on and off throughout his adult life. Was just in rehab recently about it. Yeah. And if anything, this fucking like endears Joe Biden to a lot of Americans who are going through the same exact fucking problem. Doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or whatever. Opioids are fucking destroying America. So
he should lean into it, as you say, where it's like, hey, I understand being a parent.
He has a little bit, like he said, like my son's addiction problems have been hard on our whole family, but all this other shit. So this is what they're doing. Right? We got this one little bit here that we know. This
fucking moron over here is ruining it for our
Hey, right? So this is what
fucking kid.
This is what they're trying to do, right? Say that he's got a crackhead son that was working for a shady Ukrainian organization, and this is the same case. And this information is coming from Rudy Giuliani, a lot of the president's cohorts. So there's new news that just came out through the fucking New York Post, which is not the New York Times. Okay. The New York Post is more in line with like the fucking National Enquirer for the level of news they usually,
really? Okay.
or like celebrity news and shit like that. Russ and I were just talking about this before we were on. And so the New York Post comes out with this article where the guy who wrote it wouldn't even attach his name to it. Because he's like, I don't know, a lot of this isn't verified. But allegedly, Rudy Giuliani brought him a laptop that was Hunter Biden's, or that was at least full of a bunch of information on Hunter Biden. That somehow Rudy Giuliani had found out about at either a pawn shop or a computer store, some fucking place far away from Hunter Biden's house, where apparently he dropped it off. It had some water damage, and he dropped it off and then forgot about it. Just never went back. And then finally the guy who had this realized whose it was and tried to contact both the Democrats and the Republicans, but no one got back to him. So then he got a hold of Rudy Giuliani. Then Rudy Giuliani got this and got the information on it, and now he's letting everybody know, letting the world know through the New York Post all this information that's on there.
What a strange
And this is the
Chain
day.
of
This is the
events.
day of their second debate where they were doing it, or town halls they ended up doing. Alex Jones also has recently been going off about this and about how the information was tying Hunter, like not tying to, but showing pictures of Hunter Biden abusing and torturing Chinese children, and then it was the Chinese government that had all this information on him, and then they were the ones that had leverage. So now it's even shifted. So now it's not just
So
that the
they're in good
Ukrainians-
company.
Not the Ukrainians had leverage on him through this energy company, because that had been investigated at the Senate, at the Congress, at numerous levels. This had real investigations into it. They found, other than it looking like possibly nepotism, even though there was never a quid pro quo or anything like that, more like, well, your dad's that guy, you get the job, even though they don't have a connection to his father. Now they're trying to say that the Chinese government had compromise on him, and they were holding this over him as leverage, and that's their. And again, this is the son
To
of
what end?
to try and get influence over the vice president or the former vice president of the United States, because they've got compromise on his son, right?
If it's real.
Once again,
If it
once
exists.
again, these okay. So, and this is them taking something small, blowing it way out of proportion, trying to muddy the waters and make it be crazy enough that eventually you can't understand what's right or wrong about it. But you know that Hunter Biden is a crackhead, and so then that's the reason you can't fucking vote for him, right?
Again, Hunter Biden,
That's-
bad.
That's the point
Dad,
of this, right?
Bad dad.
But if you look at anything Trump's done in the last 4 years, every fucking time he comes out and goes, well, these guys are embezzling, or these guys are doing this or that, it's always projection. It's always projection. Since he became president, this piss tape has been floating around out there that it exists. This is an example of the type of compromise they would have on people like that. So these guys are trying to project and say, well, no, it's not us with the tapes on us. It's those guys. It's not Don Jr. with the coke problem, even though you see him at the convention and he's sniffling the whole time and he's cranked up, and then his girlfriend, Kimberly Guilfoyle, gets on and gives a Hitler-level fucking crazy speech, just wired. No, they're not the ones on cocaine, because that's already been going out. It's
Or
Hunter
that
Biden that's the
picture,
one that's the problem.
That video of Epstein and Trump watching the models.
They're not the pedophiles. It's the Democrats that are the pedophiles.
As an ex-addict,
Yeah.
Trump is coked out of his head in
that video? Absolutely.
He's grinding his jaw.
Absolutely.
He's sitting there going, check this out. And he's like tapping his feet. He's sweating. He's fucked up on coke. I will guarantee you.
Yep.
Of course, there's no drug test.
There's been rumors that he's been on like meth or some shit, or the
Energy shots.
the legal equivalent for fucking years.
The
right?
old Kennedy energy shots. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that.
So yeah, it's pretty wild, the misinformation campaign. Because again, when it was first coming out, I'm like, well, this seems odd that there's not being more reporting about it, right? And if this is legitimate, and then of course it's not. Of course it's not legitimate, right?
Because it's not real news. It's Alex Jones
It's
level.
right, and this is what Rudy Giuliani's been doing
Edutainment.
with. And that's the fuck thing about all of this. They're looking at this Burisma connection to a Ukrainian energy company. Rudy Giuliani has had Ukrainian hired goons arrested that worked for him. Igor and Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman.
You know so much about this shit. It scares me. Like their names memorized and all.
Well, it's
their
hard
fucking-
not to, man. It's very interesting, and it's like, to me, this is. I'm going to be thinking about this stuff for the rest of my fucking life, because I'm going to see it happen.
See, this is what I find very interesting about American politics. Is it runs a lot like a reality television show.
Now it does.
It does. It's entertaining,
Well,
and it's drama, and it's scandal. And I really wonder how much of that is just a puppet show for people to really
dude,
distract
it
them from
was.
what's really happening. Because real politics is boring as fuck.
Yep.
When you're talking about like balancing budgets, it's like going to an accounting meeting. Like, okay,
Well,
you
and they
ever
don't
go to
and they
a
don't,
city
and they
council
don't
meeting?
really want you to see that.
Yeah.
None of these senators and shit really want to people to know how they voted on stuff. They just want to go and do it and then get through it. You know what I mean? They don't want this stuff publicized. And you're totally right, because that was how they were trying to, get people interested in the news and keep people interested in politics. You have to make it like a reality TV show. And then they go so far as to elect
Hire
a
a
reality
reality
TV
TV
show
star,
president.
yeah.
Well, then he treats it like everybody was like, well, that's what they do, isn't it? Isn't that what they do? Isn't this the dramatic world they live in? And you're like, well, no, the reality of those things is much grosser. There's a lot more embezzling and people trying to kill themselves and whatnot, like what just
But
happened
if
with
the
his
guy can
ex-campaign
hop up and
manager.
down and point his finger and scream, "Cokehead, cokehead," that's like, oh wow, that's interesting. I
Yep.
don't need to care about that.
Yep,
That
and
icky,
that's all it takes.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it takes. Because I know, man, again, for much people, like politics just isn't part of your fucking life. Like,
No.
you just until recently, many people didn't think about it at all. It'd come around election time, maybe they'd vote, maybe not, and even then, it might have been on the day. Go, well, I mean, I like that guy, and I heard he said this, and that's
But you
as much
know
as
what
it was
happened? What I saw happen is something like Black Lives Matter really puts it on the forefront, where there's a downtrodden group of people that say, The world needs to see what's happening to us here. You know what I mean? Same thing with the indigenous people in Canada. The world needs to see what's happening to us here. And why it's happening is this system that's in place that nobody's looking at the quality or what's actually going on with this system. So when people examine that system, they see the flaws. And then all this game starts. Oh, shit, we have to do all this stuff to distract them from what's actually happening in this system. And because the system is flawed and it is privileged and it is based to advance a small sector of the population versus the wide base of the population, right? And a guy like...
And that's not even the flaw of it. That's the design.
It was designed, yeah.
It's a flawed system designed to do this.
Well, it's only flawed if you're not benefiting.
Yes,
right?
yes, right? That's the flaw in it. You
Yeah,
can't figure out how to
and-
get everybody benefit by taking advantage of most of them.
The idea of the trickle-down economy, you give breaks to the ultra-rich and they're going to give jobs to the middle class. Well, it just doesn't happen. You know, they're going to tax and they're going to just work people to the bone, try and avoid raising the minimum wage for as long as they possibly can.
Well, and
So
other
when-
than keeping them as slaves, those people never interact with them. It isn't like rich people, even when that trickle down, are going into middle class businesses and spending their money then too, right?
No.
They're making the money off of them and then spending them at the Porsche dealership or some other fucking thing that these people couldn't even walk into.
Or just investing and making money off of
There
their
you
money,
go.
making money off of their money until they're so ridiculously removed from the common man. I always get frustrated when I hear, I'll go so far as to call them upper middle class bros, like the riggers and the miners and like the hardworking dudes that we know that are out there and they're getting paid well defending capitalism because finally they were able to get out of low class and have a little bit of something. And they figure that if you criticize capitalism, if you criticize this system, if you criticize oil, you're going to take away that little bit they could earn. So they're willing to fight you to defend that little bit that they've earned because they think that they're rich.
Yep.
They're
They got a
ghetto
place
rich.
at the lake in a boat.
Pardon?
They got a place at the lake in a boat.
Yes,
They got
exactly.
two snowmobiles.
And they're rich.
Yep.
Because that's ghetto
Yeah.
rich.
Yeah.
They can afford a leather couch now.
Yeah, and rich people are like, you're a peasant.
Yeah, you were
You're-
still a fucking peasant. You're a peon, right? And they think that capitalism works for them because they are no longer struggling tooth and nail to just get somewhere, and they can finally relax a little bit. But as soon as they stop relaxing, all of that, financed debt and all of that stuff comes back on them.
A lot of it's built on a 60 or 80-hour work week.
Yes,
also,
exactly,
like
yeah.
putting in these crazy long hours and then
2
being
weeks out,
proud of
1
that
week in,
until
3
it
weeks out,
destroys
1
you.
week in.
Exactly, emotionally, mentally, fucking physically. A lot of these
Yeah.
jobs,
You
and
run
then-
ragged.
Yep, you better be able to retire by the time you're 50 because you're going to have to.
And you want to fight tooth and nail, or you want to fight, you're ready to be violent to protect those little things that you were able to struggle because you think capitalism worked for you. But it didn't. Capitalism exploited you the same as it exploited the people that have nothing.
Yeah.
The guys that went through the breakups in the oil fields, or those mines that just suddenly shut down because their profit margins aren't good enough, so they just yank out an entire town of people that moved to a place.
Yep.
And then they're like, holy shit. How do I make a living? I'm broke now. Buy all my toys. Here, I'll sell you my toys for half of what I bought my toys from. You want a quad? You want a truck? You want some guns? You want a sled, a boat? I'll sell it to you for a few grand versus the 15 grand I bought it for. Or the other element is drowning in financing. You buy a house that you can afford only because you're working that job. And as soon as that job falls out from under you, how are you going to make those payments on this fucking truck and on this house and on these toys, right? So you forfeit them, the bank takes them away, they go to auction, and you're back fucking on your ass.
Yeah.
My one good buddy, a common buddy of ours, he ended up just being a bouncer. It was the only job he could do when the oil rigs shut down. He's like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I got child support I need to pay, and he's still renting. You know what I mean? He's got a truck and he's renting, and he ended up just being a bouncer. That's a job you get out of high school if you're big enough. You know what I mean? What have you been doing? And we're in our mid-30s.
Can you stay sober all night and yell at people?
Yeah, we're in our mid-30s, and this is the only job you can fucking get. And so these guys scramble to get into the economy because they bought the line that, like, this is going to be forever. This is going to be forever. As opposed to the people that are...
Well, and I think they kind of all know that, too, right? No, I think they do. That's why they're so quick to defend it, because they know how fragile it is. If they thought it was a permanent solution, and they're like, no, I'm always going to have this. I've got everything. I've done all the work I need to make sure I can always maintain this level. What would I have to worry about, right? But when you don't have that, you're fucking nervous about... I get a flat. That's a big deal.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I have a car issue. I'm like, holy fuck, this is a big fucking
I hope
deal.
my
When
insurance can
realistically,
cover me.
It isn't. You know what I mean? If I had more money in my account, it wouldn't be at all, right? But it's just, if I don't have that, I'm not gonna feel secure, and then I'm gonna be defensive about it.
So the people in the executive branches of the oil companies that make the pen stroke that says, okay, this is it, we're picking up, we're moving out, our profit margins aren't there. They don't ever worry about that.
Nope.
They don't ever
Not for a
feel
minute.
that because they've got
And probably
rigs
have
across-
never once in their entire life. Sorry, I keep cutting
yeah,
you
go
off,
ahead.
man.
No,
I'm
no,
fucking
it's
terrible
good.
for that today. But no, because I feel like a lot of those, to even be at that level, you weren't eating Spam sandwiches as a kid.
No,
You know what
that's
I
a good
mean? Like
point.
you're
That's a
already
good
at
point.
a certain level where your parents could afford to buy you a car, or maybe even help pay for your
You
college.
didn't get into it
you know what I mean?
for on
You
a
didn't.
laborer-
And even a lot of those
as a
guys I know
laborer with a
that
shovel.
made their money, doing it the hard way and building their business and building their welding company or whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is. Who helped you get your first truck?
Yep.
Whose basement were you working out of and not paying any rent? It was your parents. It was
Yeah.
your cousins. It was somebody left you some money. Even no. It's such a fucking fallacy that you can come from nothing and pull yourself up from your
bootstrap
bootstraps.
idea.
It is. I don't know anybody that's that's done it. But I guess also like what has done it. Like is it a great big house and all the cars and shit you want and $1 million in the account all the time? Well, I don't know anybody who's done that. You know what I
See,
mean?
okay, it's funny because a lot of my old punk rock friends, they tease me. They think I'm the rich guy.
I know. Well, okay, because as soon as I started saying that, I started thinking of you, but then I'm like, well, no, like
I'm
like,
struggling to pay mortgage.
Yeah.
COVID just about knocked me out of the fucking mortgage game.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go beg the bank for an extension on my mortgage. I have to cover lease on my tattoo shop. I drive a truck, which I was able to eventually pay off, but I had to get a loan, so it wasn't financed. It wasn't an expensive truck. It looks good. So I'm just a working class Joe. Legitimately.
You're that guy you were just talking about earlier. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Where you got comfortable enough where you're like, I have a, because I mean, even homeownership.
But I recognize that capitalism doesn't work
Yeah.
because one little snap of the
Yeah.
finger and I lose everything.
Exactly. Your acknowledgement of all of this doesn't make any difference. You still had to talk to the bank to get that extension.
Yes,
right?
exactly. Hey, man, this is
Yep.
times are tough.
Again,
What can I
none of
do?
this is judgment on anybody else so
No.
much. It's a lot. I project just as much as anybody, and a lot of this is reflection.
So-
I see this in you, in me.
And it's kind of fucked up. Like, I got two stories here that, like, okay, so my one buddy, he got a job out at Colonze because it was a big mine. It was supposed to be work forever, like he ended up buying a house in Colonze. And it was affordable. Small town houses are affordable. So he's going to work at the local mine and he just doesn't have to commute, saves
it right,
money on
commute.
gas. Yeah, commute. He doesn't have to commute. Anyways, so he buys a house in Colonze and for whatever reason, the upper echelon say, you know what, I think it was potash is selling so much. The Indians aren't buying it, like in India.
Yep.
And so
You used
we
that term correctly there.
exactly. Those fucking Indians aren't
Jesus
buying it
Christ.
down.
Okay, easy.
So they shut down the mine.
Yeah.
Buddy's got a mortgage at a small town with nothing to do there. So what's he going to do? Sell the house to who? You know what I mean? He's stuck out there. So now he's trying to find a place to work. So he has to get himself a place to stay closer to wherever the fuck he's going to work. What's his skill set? Maybe some mechanics or maybe operating some machines. Where's he going to work? And what's he
Yeah,
going
it
to do?
is similar environment.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And there's
So-
not mines all over the fucking place. There's a few. Yeah. Well, I mean, like a lot of those skills are translatable to other stuff. But again, it's just even that whole construction industry, like it's slowed down. Like, yeah. No, and Colonze, it's actually funny you mentioned that because it's like I sell steak and seafood out of a little van driving around all over the place. This is what I do for a living. And Colonze is a fucking town where I've never had a fucking sale. And you drive in there and you think, this is a mine town. There's this mine money. There's lots of nice houses. People have built stuff. But it's exactly like you say. Like people either have the attitude of, oh, you think I've got money and you're trying to take advantage of me and I'm smarter than you. Or they're like, no, I just legitimately can't afford fucking steak and lobster.
Things
Like,
are shitty out here right now.
this looks good. Yes, it looks good, doesn't it? And it's like, but behind the scenes, I can picture the fucking numbers going.
Their house poor, their truck poor. Yeah. Well, man, okay, so there's this other...
Not to speak ill of Colonze, I'm just saying
Well,
that's
no,
the
this is-
vibe I've got being in that small town. And sorry, even compared to other towns of a similar size that are more removed.
This
I'll have
is the
sales like crazy.
community we're living. We're in District 12. Fuck, like we're miners, oil workers, and farmers. This is where we are in our country, and And we aren't in Toronto. We aren't in Vancouver, Montreal, Quebec. You know, we are just the breadbasket. We are the working class province. You know, Alberta, Saskatchewan, maybe a bit of Manitoba. So you go out to these small communities, and it's sort of like the business model of Walmart. Right? Walmart will move into a small community, let's say 25,000. It's just big enough, maybe say 50,000. It's just big enough for them to open one Walmart in town. And they sell everything, and they sell it cheaper than you can get down the street. And so what do you need? Hardware? Go to Walmart. What do you need? Groceries? Go to Walmart. What do you need? Fucking clothes for your kids, shoes, you know, tools? Go to Walmart. And so all those mom and pops, the bakery in town, the hardware store in town, the clothing store, the little general store, they all start closing down because they can't compete with this fucking mega store. But then the executives for Walmart will say, well, you know what? Our bottom line, we're not making enough money at that location in that small town. So now we're going to up it and close it. After they've destroyed the economy, all of those small businesses have shut down because they can't keep up with the mega store. And when they don't give a shit, it's sociopathy. So it's the same thing with these small communities that are based around like an oil rig culture or mining culture. They roll in, all these guys get houses they can't afford, toys they can't afford because they think, oh, here you go. It's kind of like drugs, you know, here, all the money you can spend, go to the bank, you can make payments easy. Oh, wait, we're taking it away from you now. And they destroy a community. With those houses that they spent $500,000 on, they can't get $250,000. No one wants to move there. There's no work for them. So you have these wonderful communities that look great on the outside, but it's just like a ghost town. And sooner or later, it will be a ghost town.
And all those communities need social spending, need mental health help, need actual health help, need hospitals not to close. Those are all left-leaning socialist ideas that would only benefit people that are so scared of having their situation and position taken away from them that they have to lean right on their voting because they keep thinking that that's the dirty left's going to steal all my money.
They think exactly that my taxes, I can't afford more taxes. They don't realize that their depression, their addiction, their cheating on their wives cheating on them, the domestic abuse, all of this stuff. That's what you need social safety net for. That's why you need social spending for free Medicare, for unemployment insurance. For
and what's crazy is those are bred from that problem. They have the depression and the anxiety because of the mortgage looming over them, because of the volatility in the oil industry, because of the job that they've gotten into. Right.
Well, yeah, and it's
fight
tough
to protect this position that keeps me sick.
Yeah, the blue collar necessity for the left-leaning politics, the workers aspect, I think has been left out. And I've talked about this before when I talk to the NDP people, and I'm like, you got a bunch of like educated, well-off, like doctors, lawyers, dentists, and their wives, educated university types talking about how we're going to fix the problem for the poor. And you fucking forget the middle class.
Well, here's the thing too: is I think they keep forgetting they're the poor. You know what I mean?
What do you mean, the middle class?
Fucking rights they are, man. They got the same problems people that make $30,000 a year less than them do. They do not have the same problems that people who make $3 million a year more than them do.
No, and they think they're in the same thing. You might be making $250,000 a year on the high end, and you're making good money if you do that. You are nowhere near the guy who's clearing $1 million.
You don't have Elon Musk problems.
No. Fucking, even the guy who's 2 or 3 tiers above you at the mine, or 2 or 3 tiers above you at the oil rig. That's a different. You don't own.
They're not walking in and buying cars cash. They're not walking in and buying a house on the fucking lake.
That's what reminded me. You say you blow a tire on the road, and you're like, holy shit, this is going to be an issue. How am I going to manage that? Those guys, I'll get another car.
Fucking right.
You know what I mean?
It's not get the boy to look after it.
Yeah, exactly. Get me another vehicle out here now, right? So yeah, this really blows my mind, and the fact that like the blue collar white guys in the States really and in Canada, like if you take a look at what's going on in Nova
imaginary
Scotia,
boundary doesn't stop.
So these blue collar white guys
sure.
really think that like this system is designed to protect them. No, they're just better slaves.
Yep.
They got better quarters, better food. They're sort of like the ones that keep all the other slaves in line.
They're the house. That word I can't say.
Yes, the house neighbors, house ninjas.
Yeah, you're the house neighbor.
Yeah. So
no, absolutely, man. That's how I've always looked at it myself. Like unless you're in a private jet flying somewhere else, if you're just looking down at somebody from your truck that's worth $60,000 more than their car, you're still the same people. You know what I mean? You're not detached from that, and it's the people in the private jets that are fucking with your life.
Okay, so on that token, I really believe that blue collar, because technically they are middle class cops, are largely class traders. You know what I mean? They're the echelon that maintains the status quo.
Class traders, fucking
Right. Well, they're the echelon that they only get paid 20, maybe $30 an hour for putting their lives on the line to maintain that status quo, to keep those people in line.
And their lives are only on the line against people of a similar wealth bracket or lower.
Yeah, because they have to ask permission to do a raid on a wealthy individual,
Fucking rights.
or it gets tossed up to people in higher pay grades. It goes to the RCMP or to special investigations. Detectives show up to rich people's houses as opposed to no-knock kicking in the doors. For the same thing.
That's all I could think of. Roger Stone, Breonna Taylor. That's the
Excuse me,
difference.
can you be home at this time?
Yep,
They
no-knock
do that
warrant.
shit
One ends up dead.
when somebody steals hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million.
An election. Help steal an election.
Exactly. So there's two different tiers. So I see guys, and this is going to sound politically incorrect, especially marginalized community, when they get involved with the police. I'm like, how can you do this to your own people, man? I get I don't get, but like the white dude cop. Yeah, you're maintaining the white dudeness of this culture, right? But when I see brown guys and black guys and they're like, yeah, I get it, because they've bought a large amount of the propaganda that says, I want a safe community. That's
Well, and
everybody does.
maybe they think they're contributing to the change, right? Maybe they're like, no, I can be the change I want to see in my community. I can be the guy that connects. And then you get there, and no, you still got to give people tickets for not having their tags up to date on their car that could totally fuck their lives.
Yeah,
they lose that car. The bus
raising
doesn't run there
revenue off
regularly
people
because they're in a
that
shitty
can't afford.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's like this, and that was what cops had seen. Like I was watching something about a cop who had done that. He had all this intention of like, no, I want to go back into my community and I want to help out. And then this is what he's doing. He's writing tickets for shit like this, where he's like, I'm keeping people in the ghetto by doing this. By me not giving them a fucking ticket for this, they can still keep going to work for the week, and they're going to get their plates caught up. It's going to be, but me doing it now, it fucks them. They probably lose their job, and it might have been the thing that got them out of this place that only has pawn shops and liquor stores and convenience stores in the whole fucking neighborhood. There's not a fucking grocery store. There's not a clothing store. There's not nothing that you can just go and work at and make a living.
Consider these fucking check stops where they do a vehicle inspection on the road. What if you can't afford any better of a vehicle? It's got some rust, it's got some surface rust, maybe some rust underneath, but you're doing your best to get out of that situation that you find yourself in. It's the only vehicle you can get to work with. Some do-good, quote-unquote, cop pulls you over. Oh, you have to check your vehicle for safety. Oh, it's got rust. You can't drive it home now. This vehicle has now been impounded. That's my vehicle. I need that to get to work. I can't afford to fix that vehicle, and now you took my vehicle away. What the fuck is that person
again, fix my
supposed to-
vehicle. This was something that was functioning, and it just wasn't within the parameters of what you thought was acceptable.
So if you don't have a new model vehicle, your vehicle's taken off the street. How do I afford a new model vehicle? Well, you get financing. How do I get financing? Well, you opt into this system of credit debt, of debt slavery. You're continually paying interest. So your $10,000 loan ends up being $17,000 by the time it's actually paid off. So where does that $7,000 come from? You're paying off these fucking credit companies. This is debt slavery, and we're using people with guns and handcuffs to enforce it. It's a system of exploitation, and that's what I see in capitalism. More than the hierarchy of people that make money, but there's also this idea of interest and banks and money lending that comes up. It's like, hey, man, I'll give you a little bit, but you're going to owe me a lot more. I'm only going to take 30%, interest a month. It's like, how is that ethical in the least? Your house, your house might be, let's say, $100,000. Once you're done fucking paying it, it's close to $2,000. Because you just keep paying and keep paying and keep paying, and and you're paying off you're not paying off the principal, you're paying off your interest half the time. And the average working class guy, they put them in a situation where you need to keep up with the Joneses. You need to have this house, you need to have this vehicle, you need to have these clothes, you need to have this status to be accepted as a functional member of society. But because if you don't, you're low class. But to get there, you're in debt. You're a fucking debt slave. I saw this one cartoon, and it's got like 5 different people walking down the street, So-and-so has got $50,000 student loans. So-and-so has got $250 mortgage, and they're all in debt in different degrees, This woman's got a car payment, a mortgage, this, and then there's a homeless guy, and the homeless guy's got $5 more and 0 debt. who's the real fucking low class guy? He's the homeless guy with $5 in his hat is the one person on that street with zero debt. You know, who when you die, that debt doesn't get passed to your family. That's fucking slavery. It's economic slavery, wage slavery, where you have to go to work to pay that shit off. People like act like I'm rich because I got a mortgage. No, I don't know shit.
That's how scumbag we all are, Pat.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's how dirt poor scumbag we all fucking grew up. Because again,
That's the rich
I
guy.
still don't know if home ownership is something I'll ever have. Like I said,
you
I
want
built
that?
that little house and I don't
you
even have
want
that.
it? You know,
Right? Well,
like,
right?
that's-
Maybe there's a reason.
Oh man, and that's what I wondered. Like these people are like, "Oh yeah, Pat got a mortgage. He's rich." I'm like, dude, I owe the bank like $250,000.
I'm the opposite of rich at
Yeah,
this
I'm
point.
just really
Yeah.
in debt.
Yeah.
You're confused. Like for that option, I can paint my walls whatever I want.
Yes.
That's just it. The bank owns
Yeah.
this house, and I remember I was out for coffee with a friend one time, and we ran into another guy I grew up with when we were teenagers. He went in one direction, I went in the other, and he's fucking drinking out of a brown bottle or a brown bag on the street, and he's like, "Hey Pat, can you lend me like $500?" He's just being an asshole because in his mind, I'm the rich guy.
Yep.
I'm the rich guy. And I'm like, man, just because I started a business and I worked my ass off to get a mortgage and to be a kind of a functional citizen, and I didn't just drown myself in the bottle or in the needle or in the pipe, that doesn't make me any fucking different than what you could have been. You know, because this guy at the time, he was offered art scholarships to go to university and all this stuff, you know. He's an indigenous guy, but he didn't take it because he was kind of wallowing in his self-pity in his trip, right? And so now he's on the streets drinking instead of doing anything with it, but he's giving me grief because I fucking worked and tried
sell
to...
out.
Yeah,
Cake
hey man,
eater.
can you lend me $500?
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck off, man, you know,
Yeah.
like... I'm just a working stiff
From the
like
streets, motherfucker.
no, I'm just a working stiff like you. Why I got to be a fucking dick
Yeah.
about it?
No, you're a working stiff. That guy's just a stiff. You
Right?
know what I mean? You're working for fucking shit.
Well, that's just it. And people act like I'm fucking rich, and that tells you something, you know. Where I think I'm one of few people I know that actually have a mortgage. You know, got into a mortgage and before it became unattainable. Unattainable in Saskatchewan for the average working stiff. The fact that there's a thing called working poor blows my mind. When you can work one or two jobs and still not afford to fucking live,
Yeah.
you know, where you're still going into debt every month, you know.
Well,
And
that was my mom's joke when we were kids because for what she made when it was just like her and the three of us, she made half of what the poverty level was for a family of four in Canada. So if it was 22,000 a year or whatever, she made $11,000 a year. You know what I mean? She's
And
like,
working.
So her joke was like, "Hey, we're poor enough for two families."
Poor enough for two. Yeah. Well, I grew up, my dad, well, he kind of worked. My mom ended up working 2 and sometimes 3 jobs, and that's to pay a mortgage. And I think they got into their house when the mortgages were still $30,000 for a house, right? You know, like it was reasonable.
I remember thinking we had it fucking made when I was in high school because my parents had split, and my mom, she wasn't working at the gas station anymore. She was working at the sawmill, which was a much better paying job and still like incredibly tough fucking labor job to be doing, flipping logs and shit in a sawmill. And she'd bought a used Pontiac Sunfire. It was a year or two old at the time because it was like a demo model for the dealership.
So it wasn't a shit box.
And and we lived in a low rental house in town, but it was the nicest house we'd probably lived in Care River because it was government built, and it was like, you know, they had
It was tight,
12 of them or
insulated.
whatever. They had there was a dozen of them they probably built throughout town, these low rental houses, and we were able to get into one. So we had this couple-year-old used car that was in really nice shape, a nice little house right across the street from the school, and she had one of the best paying jobs in town working at the sawmill. And it was like, we made it.
Yeah,
you know?
that's kind of it, yeah.
We're doing it. And she still ended up losing the car and having to buy the Delta 88, this big boat of a fucking car my brother was driving that he'd bought from my best friend in high school. It was already a piece of shit when he'd bought it. So she's probably the 5th or 6th owner of this car now, but had to give my brother some money for that because he still had to go get a car to get around, and this is what she had to do after that. Well, still, you know what I mean? Like, we made it. No, you're still going to lose your used fucking car, and somebody else in town's probably going to be driving it around. You know?
At a drop of a hat, you can be fucked.
And doing it. Thought she was doing it.
Well, my kid's mom, she kind of got out of some financial debt stuff. She was getting on top of it and signed up. She wanted a nice car, so she went to the local car lot to get herself, you know, a new car. And she signed up for it, and they strapped her with some ridiculous interest. You know, if you don't pay this off quick, it's gonna fucking bite you. And then some shit happened. She turned it over on the highway. So she ended up owing almost as much on that interest to that vehicle as the cost of the vehicle itself. So all of a sudden she was strapped right back in debt.
Yep.
You know, it's the insurance only gives you what that vehicle is rated at, not the interest that they
not what you got owing on it.
Yes.
It's only what it's worth. If you owe twice as much as what it's worth,
because
tough
some
titties.
shady fucking capitalist
Yep.
decides to milk you.
Yeah, you don't know what a fucking used car is worth, right? And they're going to take advantage. That's what they do.
Or if
well, and
that's
even if
the
you do
only
know
way
what it's
for you
worth,
to
yeah, it's
get
your only
in.
option. Well, that's how I first got a halfway decent vehicle. Was I had to go through one of these fucking places that it was criminal what they were charging me for
Yes.
interest. But I fucking paid it off, and yeah, paid way more than my vehicle. But it was the only I couldn't even get it. Everybody said, "Why don't you get a down payment?" Well, because I didn't have the money. Why don't you save? Well, because I've been poor my entire life.
Yeah, 'cause I'm
never
busy
saved
paying
anything.
rent.
You know, why didn't you get your parents to help you? Because they've been the same way. You know what I mean? Like, I'm several generations deep in this being this kind of poor, man. It's not like you can just all of a sudden fucking be like, "Oh no, I do have that extra 15,000 from that inheritance I could use." Nope, never existed.
So my trajectory with employment, it went from fucking like legitimately like dishwasher, working in porn stores, delivering furniture, right? Like these are like, I don't have skills. You know, what can I do to fill a
Yeah,
spot?
what can a body do?
Yes, exactly. You know, you need a paperweight. I can sit on something. So yeah, me and my brother delivered furniture, and then the opportunity came for me to try and learn an apprenticeship in tattooing. And I never thought it was going to make any money. I just thought it was a punk rock way for me to be an artist, right? And even before it hit the TVs, we were paying rent. You know what I mean? Our first shop, our overhead was $250 a month with what we could afford from tattooing to upgrade our equipment as we went. And for the first, I think, 8 or 9 years I ran my studio, if we couldn't buy it with cash, we didn't get it. Because I didn't have credit. I didn't really believe in credit. But after a while, we were able to get into the credit game. But that's not available to a lot of people. If you don't know
Took
how
you
to...
just about a decade.
Yes.
And that's
yes.
doing it the right way, paying everything cash, right?
Technically, you know, like I'm self-employed. You know, everybody that works for me is self-employed. I don't have a business so much. I just give everybody the opportunity to run their own business. And it's funny, Jose, you remember Jose from previous podcasts. He tells me that I run the shop like a communist. And I'm like, I don't know about that, man, because technically the buck stops with me. But he's like, but we all have a say in how the shop runs. If there's a problem with something going on, we have a staff meeting, and you don't come in and crack on minimum that we have to make or anything like that. But to me, I joke around that, like, I just base it off of old Chinese philosophy. A real ruler, people don't even know that they're ruling. Because they're not there unless there's a real problem. Just let the people do their own fucking thing and let them be, right? The more legislation you dump on people, the more they resist that legislation and they resent the rulership, right? I don't know, man. This entire fucking system, it seems so flawed to me. Because a person just can't live. Once upon a time...
Well, and what's insane is we all fucking agreed to it, and we constantly give our power up to it all the time.
Because we haven't been given a strategy to get out of it.
That's true, yeah.
Like, what is the strategy to get out of it? Moving to a little house?
Yeah.
You know, okay, so this is another one, right? This is fucked, too. So I got the quarter section of land, which was a rental agreement, a rent-to-own agreement with a crazy old cowboy wwho also doesn't like the government, banks, or lawyers. So we went and shook hands, wrote up a...
Birds of a feather. Yeah,
Yes,
let's
we
flock
went.
together.
We shook hands. We made an agreement. We went to a lawyer and got the paper signed, so it's all legal. So I give him money every month, and I can go live on the land if I want. I will always have to pay property taxes there, right? Which is another way that they keep you in. You're always going to be taxed. So I considered allowing my friends to all kind of come on and set up their little houses, mini houses, trailers, We will create a little community. You know, there's a trail, and this is so-and-so's, and this is so-and-so's, and this is so-and-so's. The RM, they're like, you can't do that. You need an officially sanctioned road for people to have little lots of land to make any money
subdivided,
off of that.
and
Yes,
and they
you
want,
need to have...
and all of a sudden your taxes are going to go up.
Yeah, you can't do it because they want to crack down and control you. There is nowhere that you can just live without paying taxes. What happened? Where is that from?
Well, it
just
used to
the way
be
it
though.
is.
It used to be though that you could live on crown land.
Yeah, if they don't catch you.
And I don't remember if it had to be, the structure had to be under a certain size, but like you couldn't develop it, you couldn't make a yard, you know what I mean? You couldn't do that shit, but you could have a place and live on fucking crown land and live in your little thing. And I do believe that was a thing you could do for a time.
Once
but
upon
maybe
a
they've
time, you
changed
could
the rules
homestead
now.
on crown land.
There you go. Yep.
If you could exist, I think first it was like 2 or 3 years. If you could exist without getting kicked off of crown land with a little area cordoned off, then that's yours.
Yeah.
Then they changed the law, so you need to occupy it for 40 years.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, you need to live on Crown land for 40 years without being caught and kicked off before you can call it your own. Technically, I believe all Crown land should be indigenous land. There's no reason the Crown should own anything in Canada when they fucking keep fucking over the indigenous people on the treaties that they agreed to. So if you're breaking your own law, it goes back to the previous existing situation. So Crown land is all forfeited to indigenous land. That's my opinion, but what do I know? I'm just a caveman. But other than that, as a settler, as a white settler, my family were immigrants on a land that was stolen by colonialists. Yeah, I'm kind of stuck into a colonial system. And by being in that colonial system, how can we exist with the minimal amount of participation in these exploitive systems?
Right.
That's my
See,
big thing.
And that's the bullshit of this whole thing. Is it's like as soon as you don't want to participate in the ugly aspects of it, it's like you don't get any of the benefits of the positives of it. You know what I mean? Oh, you don't like how the system works? Why don't you go live in a shack in the fucking bush then? Because it's 2020, I shouldn't fucking have to. All this technology exists. All this shit's here. It's just because it doesn't fit in with your little fucking rule set that now I don't get to have the benefit of it anymore. When it's bullshit. It's oh, you didn't take your hat off when you came in the house, so you don't get to sit here and have my dinner then. What the fuck are you talking about? That's imaginary. That's your perceived slight, and now you're going to put a real impact on the real world against me because of that?
They withhold technology and the ability to use the technology that we have to keep us paying those making money. You can't have solar panels in your house and be taking the power from your own solar panels. You have to sell it to Sask Power, and they give you a rebate when they give you your check. So it's against the law to do that. There's some places they're outlawing collecting rainwater. You need to be drawing off of the city grid, you know? Some places down in the States, I've actually heard that they've made it illegal to build or to exist off grid. You need to be tied into the grid.
Yep.
And I'm like, holy shit. So it's just increasingly encroaching.
Sorry, that's why that tiny house movement, that's why so many of them are tiny houses on wheels. It's not just that, oh, I'd love to be able to just pick up and move and go wherever I want and take this tiny house, because it's really not practical. They're usually not built and designed in the way to be a really good trailer like a fucking RV is. If you wanted to do that, you'd have an RV. You'd have a pull-behind RV or a drivable RV, and you'd insulate it, because that's exactly what they're designed for. These are houses that you build on a little trailer. The reason they're doing that is because you can't have a small structure like that permanently fixed.
Oh, really? So
If
you
you're
need
gonna
to have
so
to
you
be
got
able
it
to
on
move
wheels, so you can theoretically move it anytime you want to, and then you can just run it like you would a fucking RV, but you're still going to live in it like you would. It's so fucking stupid. It's
Well,
so
man.
stupid.
See, and that's just exactly it. Like, we'll look at transportation, right? Let's take transportation, for example, because, you know, we're both kind of chopper heads or bike heads. I looked into the minimum amount that you have to have. You have to have under a 50cc vehicle in order to drive it without a license. Now, that's a perfect way of taking a step away from control by this system. You don't need to have a registered license. This is my vehicle operating license, or this is my registration for the vehicle. It needs to be under 50 cc's, which is a very, very small engine. But you can do it. It's basically like a powered bike. You know,
Yep.
you can bicycle, but increasingly they're going to give
mopeds are under 50 cc's.
yeah, but I'm not sure. I think you still need a license for a lot of the mopeds. But either way, if I ride a bike, increasingly they're going to give you tickets if you aren't wearing a helmet. If you're riding a bike on the sidewalk and
Right.
not on the street, and if you are riding the wrong way
Where's
on the
your
street.
reflective gear? And all
Yeah,
that other
where's your
bullshit?
reflection and stuff like that. So they've taken away our right to live. They've taken away our right to feed ourselves. They've taken away our right to transport ourselves. You know what I mean? Increasingly, they've taken away our rights to raise our own children as we see fit. You know, like, so what kind of society are we living in? We're just livestock. This is the way I really believe. We're just livestock in a farm where we are comfortable with. They've given us enough room in the cages to think that we're free.
Most of our offenses are imaginary.
And okay, so if we're livestock, what are we being sheared for? Obviously not our skin, but we're taxed. We're milked by the amount of tax that we pay as like the middle class, because the farmers don't pay taxes. We pay taxes to them. And they've given us enough freedom to decide which job we're going to do in the system. And I think it's a flawed system, or it's a functional system for those at the top of that hierarchy, that pyramid, right? I don't know. Guys like Trump, they represent the top of the pyramid. They're hucksters. They've been playing the game. They've got like an army of lawyers and an army of accountants to weasel their way out of any accountability for any of the shit that they fucking do. They can be $500 million in debt or whatever the fuck he owes people, and still be considered on the upper echelons of society. And he's just sitting there playing like the little what is it called? Shell games, the card, 3-card Monty, with his buddies about where's the money, where's the money, where's the money? Oh no, it's over here. Oh no, it's over here now. Oh no, it was nowhere. It was nowhere, but they can get to control a country, and he can give kickbacks or, lobbying, and his buddies get, huge pharmaceutical companies or huge tobacco or alcohol or all these big pharma, big oil. They get to do whatever the fuck they want because they're billionaires.
On Epstein's Island.
Wherever, right? Wherever.
Yeah.
Because that's the top of that pyramid. While guys on the ground are scrambling like motherfuckers so we don't end up on the street. And if you end up on the street, it's a crime.
Yeah. And you better fight amongst each other while you're at it.
Yeah, being poor is a crime.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like
you have to get rich.
Stay poor, folks.
Well, fuck. As much as you can without going to jail. Man. Okay.
That's the fine line to walk.
So a few days ago, I cut my finger. Pretty bad. I got a fancy knife from Andy Alm. He's a blacksmith. I brought it out to show you what I fucking cut myself on. 8 stitches in my ring finger on my right hand. I got this crazy knife. This guy is a blacksmith from the States. Andy Alm Knives on Instagram or andyalm.com. That's ALM. And I got this filleting knife. He's a blacksmith that really started. This is a railroad.
I was just going to
spike.
say that end looks like a railroad spike.
He does almost all of his stuff out of old school railroad spikes. So I got this filleting knife, and it was covered in grease to stop the rust because it's like old school blacksmithing. Because if I'm going to be out at the farm, you never know what I'm going to have to need. I've got some traps just in case it's a survival situation, and a filleting knife might come in handy. So I take that out, careful, because it's a sucker. And of course, it's greasy, and I drop it, and I catch it in midair.
You didn't, Pat.
Yes, I tried to catch the handle, but it basically came down like this.
Yep.
And it just about took the tip of my finger off.
That's a sharp knife.
Yes, it's a crazy
Jesus.
knife. So how this factors into our conversation, I'm sitting, so this happened at 10:30 at night. I get to the hospital around 11, holding my finger together. I didn't get out till 3:30 in the morning. Thank you, Medicare, but, it was a long wait. But I got to sit next to this little gangster kid who was having some internal, chest and head issues, right? And this gangster kid is covered in homemade tattoos, so we start chatting some tattoos and stuff. Now, he showed up to the hospital in jogging pants and a T-shirt. It was cold as fuck. You could see your breath out. He had no ID, no money, no cell phone. Didn't know where any of his buddies were. Didn't know how he was going to get a hold of them. Luckily, they let him into the hospital without this stuff because he was obviously in pain. We'd be having a conversation. He'd grab his chest or grab his head in the middle because he had some internal stuff going on. He said he had a car accident a few years earlier, and that's why he had this brain stuff going on. So this kid, how the fuck is he going to survive? He didn't know what he was going to do when he left the hospital. He was like, man, hopefully they let me stay here a couple nights. I can get some food and a bed, and then hopefully I can figure out how to get a hold of my friends. I'm like, well, where do you live, man? He's like, well, I was born in PA, but I kind of travel between there, Regina, and Saskatoon. And I'm like, just couch? And he's like, wherever, however, that's his life. You know what I mean? And I can't relate. I'm sitting there talking to this kid for 2 hours, and I'm like, his world is so far removed from mine as far as mine is removed from some of these yuppies in these beautiful neighborhoods, as far as theirs is removed from these people that are living with golden toilets. You know what I mean? And I can't relate to this kid where I half wanted to give him my hoodie. Like, I don't know where you're going to go after you get out of the hospital, man.
Hey?
And then watching, because he has a splitting headache, he's having chest issues, and he goes and asks the nurse, can I sit over there on those chairs and just lay down? They're like, no, buddy, you can't. And immediately their attitude changed. The way they talked to me versus the way they talked to this kid were two different worlds, And maybe it's because I don't have an accent. Maybe it's because my tattoos are nice and his are homemade. Maybe it's because he's native and I'm white, But they're just like, no, you can't do that. They didn't even want to hear why. The kid can't really talk without keeling over and holding his chest or his head. And it blew my mind that This is reality. All you have to do is go sit in a fucking hospital
Yeah.
waiting room and watch what walks in. Right?
Isn't that wild? Hey, yeah,
Yeah.
if you really wanted to see what's wrong in a fucking community, yeah, go wait in a fucking hospital waiting room for a bit.
Yeah, and like he was sitting there with a t-shirt on and fucking jogging pants, no phone, no wallet. He didn't know how to get a hold of anybody. He didn't know where he was staying when he got out of the hospital. And I'm just jaw dropped. And that's just one kid.
Yeah.
One night. There's an entire generation. There's entire, schools of these kids that show up to school with like a hoodie and minus 30.
Fucking right.
And what's happening to them? Where's their social safety net?
Yeah.
Because being poor is a crime, right? At any time, if that kid finally got frustrated enough to say, what the fuck is your problem? Why are you treating me like this? Oh, there's a sign, no verbal abuse. You're now assaulting me. Security will try and throw him out. He gets in a fight with security.
Yeah. Well, even that same kid going to school, and
Yes.
somebody starts going, well, how do we get you some help? Well, social services shows up and takes you from your parents. That's your help.
Well, he was telling me, he's like, because I'm like, hey, man, I think I'm going to need like a lot of stitches. He's like, oh, yeah, my baby's mom stabbed me in the ribs. That was a bad one. I needed 9 stitches. And I'm like, oh, that's brutal. And he's like, yeah, the EMTs showed up and they were trying to get my name and I didn't want to tell them. And I told them to fuck off. You don't need my name. Just make me better, And I'm like, well, why you got to be an asshole? They're just trying to help you. And he started laughing. He's like, just because I wanted to.
Yeah.
But that's just it. How much shit do you got to take from the people that run this system before you're just like, hey, fuck you, help me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All I want is your fucking help and you're giving me grief. He just wants to lay down somewhere. Can you give me a place to lay down so I don't have to sit at this chair for 3 hours? Like,
Well,
fuck
and he even
me.
did the respectful thing in that situation, went and asked permission.
Yeah, he didn't just
A
go.
lot of
do
people
it.
just go, oh, open chair, better fucking lie down. Nobody's using it. What do you care?
And all of a sudden security comes up and the kid who needs help gets thrown out. Like, man, it blows my mind. And I know some social workers, they tell me the stories of like the young people that they have to deal with. And like the streets are safer than whatever is in their home life. Now, if somebody scoops them up on the streets, they're either going to go into a foster home or go back to that home life. My brother once, he was really critical. There used to be a 7-Eleven right on 22nd and Avenue P. And he didn't like going there because he's like, fuck, dude. Like, I don't know what kind of parents are out there when you see like 6-year-old children at 1 a.m. at 7-Eleven. And, but at the same time, I'm like, man, that 7-Eleven might be the safest place for them. Who knows what uncle is at the house that night, and it's fucked up. So where's the social safety net? And those kids grow up and in an environment where predators are always after them. So what happens when you are always on guard about being attacked by predators? Maybe you learn to be predatory yourself. And then you go out there and you're a criminal yourself.
Yeah. You get lots of armor.
Yes.
You start learning how to harden yourself up and make yourself not a victim. And then, what can we do to help get you that loan today, sir? Well, is there any way we can get any sort of a credit background check on you, or can your parents come in and help? Why the fuck my parents got to come in here now? Why can't it just be on me? Look, sir, we're going to need you to calm down. Would you mind just taking it down a bit? We're not trying to attack you here. We're just trying to get to the core of the issue.
What's your fucking problem? And all of a sudden, like, security and the cops, and you get arrested, and you punch a security guard. That's an assault charge. Like, don't touch me. They grab you. Get your fucking hands off me. And that's all it takes to be caught up in that huge system, right? And it kills me to know that, like, the system is built that way. It's built that way. And then these guys are like, fuck it. Just give me a check. Give me a check and give me something to take away my pain. You know what I mean? And I see it all the way up. And it's not just like Native kids in poverty. It happens with like white kids in poverty. It happens with white working class guys. It happens all the way up. It happens with women that are being neglected by their husbands that fuck off and have to go work 3 weeks out of the month and they come home for one and they've been a single mom that whole time. So that social safety net that the left is trying to encourage, that is what this is for. That's how that takes care of all of this stuff. Even the guy who's off like fucking, you shouldn't have to work a 12-hour shift and have blisters on your hands and only solution is to drink yourself into oblivion when you get home because you got to do it in the morning. You should have something in there to keep you healthy and sane and happy. I don't know. Unions, I don't know.
Well, then that just becomes more power that people want to control and more infighting and bickering and nepotism and bullshit. And
Yeah.
it gets,
What is it, the mafia controlling the Teamsters in the
fucking
States?
rights, man. It's like, well, and in the U.S. with their prison system, it's beneficial for them to not fix those social programs. Why would you fix the social programs? They're going to take away your slave class for you.
Yeah, there was written into some of those for-profit prisons is a minimum occupancy.
Hey.
So if they are
Jesus
not
fucking
occupied, the state gets sued like $3 million. You know, the state has to pay those prisons extra money if people aren't in there. So people will come up with parole or for parole, good behavior. You've been great the whole time. And then all of a sudden, oh no, we need you here a little longer because we can't have empty beds.
What the fuck?
These are people's lives.
Hey?
These are people's
Just
fucking
taking
lives.
people's time.
Yeah. I don't know, man. And then just tossing people in jail for lesser and lesser offenses because it's profitable.
But then yet not stopping people burning down lobster fisheries or trying to poison fucking supplies.
Yeah,
Like,
for
what
those
the
people,
fuck
okay,
is
for
going
those
on
people
out
that aren't
there?
familiar, out in Nova Scotia, there's this fishery situation where there's an indigenous small sustenance fishery, and then there's huge, like, you know, commercial fisheries, and they have an issue with these small indigenous fishery because they're indigenous people, they can fish out of season. But the amount that these fisheries are doing is so minimal compared to these huge corporations.
Anything I've seen has said it is a negligible number.
Yes.
It's so small
So
that
tiny.
you're never going to notice a difference in.
I think they got like
that.
5 boats versus 20 or 50, you know, that kind of thing. And so these white fishermen are going out and they're cutting the indigenous trap lines. They are burning the boats. They're burning vehicles. They're shooting flares. I saw a fucking photograph of one of those settler or the commercial liners with full outfit clan members out in the water. You know, like, this is who we are, boy. You know, that kind of shit. Full on KKK.
Right.
And now
Well, you
their
don't think
factory
they, you don't
just
think they got hillbillies on the East Coast?
Oh, 100%. But the fact that they're so overt about it, like,
What would happen here?
Yes, exactly.
What would happen here?
Well, and you know, this is what really bugs me, right? These are guys trying to improve their lot in life. They're going to work. They're working hard. They're risking their lives to put food on their families' tables. But at the same time, you're like, fuck you. You can't do it either. You know, we want to keep you on a lower echelon, and we're going to fucking hold this.
It's not fair that they get to go in 2 months out of the year that we don't too, and fish in areas that we don't get to. And
It's not fair.
okay,
Okay.
whatever.
It's not fair that they had a fucking lifestyle.
It's not fair that there's systematic racism. It's not fair that they're getting fucking absolutely destroyed, like physically. Buildings burned down and nothing's being
Well,
done.
that's the new thing. Is that like one of their, what was it, a loading area or one
their
of
storage areas for
storage
their,
areas
lobsters, yeah.
was arson.
Yep.
You'd, like, somebody burnt the whole fucking.
Well, and they've
that's
been
a high end crime.
And they've been threatening to do that to people.
Yes. Oh, they're talking about like physically burning people.
Yep.
Man.
Burn you out of your fucking house, burn you out of your car.
And now, how is this not terrorism?
It is.
Just like kidnapping a governor is
Yep.
terrorism. You are using violent tactics
Yep.
to intimidate people
Hey,
to change what
Like,
they are doing.
If they're upset about what's happening, then they should do the white man thing and go get a fucking lawyer and do it legally. But they
Do it
can't
through the
because
colonial
this
structures.
was a Supreme Court fucking decision that came down that said, no, this is a right of theirs because of the way we wrote these fucking treaties.
Yes.
That you guys keep going on. Well, it's the rules now. Okay, well, this is the rule and this is how it's interpreted
Yes.
now. They didn't change the rule. They're just looking at it and going, no, this is what it fucking says. Well, I don't want that rule then. I want all the other rules that benefit me, but I don't want the rules that benefit them.
They don't like the law.
Yep.
So they're breaking the law.
Exactly.
They are doing
this
criminal
is the fucking
shit.
thing that people on the right say everybody else does all the time. Oh, they don't like something, so they just go and protest, and they shouldn't be allowed to do that. But when your shit's infringed upon, you burn the building down.
Yeah,
You don't come there and stomp your feet. You bring a fucking assault rifle and you burn the building down.
Yeah, that's straight up terrorism.
Fucking
There's
rights
no
it is.
definition of that. And unfortunately,
Change the film grain on any of that footage. All those dudes got beards. They look pretty Middle Eastern when you start
Yeah.
changing the grain on the fucking film. All of a sudden you go, well, what are these terrorists doing? Bill? Is that you, Bill?
and then in BC, when some people say, hey, we don't want an oil pipeline built across our unceded indigenous lands, the Canadian government forced that pipeline. They put RCMP snipers zooming in on the protesters. They were ready to respond with a lethal force threat.
That's just to convince them with snipers from the distance they can't even fucking see. Why? There's one reason. You have a sniper, put a fucking scope on somebody. You
Yes.
could look with a scope. You can use binoculars.
Yes.
You use a fucking sniper rifle because you think you might have to use a fucking sniper rifle.
Yeah, a loaded weapon with a scope
Jesus
is a
Christ.
loaded weapon. A sighting scope, binoculars,
Different story.
a video camera with like a huge lens.
Fuck,
All of
that's what
those
I'm
things can
saying.
observe and report. But you chose a high-powered rifle with a scope with probably a bullet in the barrel. I'm pretty sure that they don't aim unloaded weapons at people. So
Would
in
make
this,
sense. What if you had to use it?
it's the same thing with that's the Wet'suwet'en out in BC, and the support movement was blockades. They said, okay, we're going to stop the trains from moving from one end of Canada to the other, and technically it was civil disobedience. They interrupted the flow of commerce, and it caught a lot of attention to what was happening on the unceded Wet'suwet'en territories. All of the protesters, the indigenous protesters, were disrupted or arrested for civil disobedience. But they cannot get the RCMP to really investigate these arsons and these attacks on the indigenous fisheries out in Nova Scotia. Yep. So why is the RCMP so eager to break up indigenous protests, but when white criminals are literally burning storage facilities, that doesn't merit? They're like, oh yeah, it's a small.
You need intervention in that.
There's an incident happening, and we see both sides of the story, but you can't see both sides of the story with the indigenous blockades. Right. You fucking meatheads. This is capitalism. It's capitalism. Large corporations that get kickbacks, they're lobbyists, they get subsidies, especially when it comes to...
And mixed in with a healthy dose of racism in this fucking situation.
And that's exactly
You can't think it was going to be the same response. Should it just be someone else under the same circumstances? No, it's just this other group of fishers, and we get to do this for this reason. You wouldn't have the same fucking thing.
Now, right off the bat, with I think it's the Micmac is what they're called out in Nova Scotia. I'd heard both sides of the story. You know, where the Micmac fishermen were fishing in off season, or when they were molting, or when they were full of eggs. But then the best scientific evidence came out and said, the amount they're fishing doesn't make even the minuscule dent in the ecosystem of these lobsters.
It was like 250 nets compared to tens of thousands of nets.
So you huge fisheries, you have to abide by like the ecological ebb and flow of like the molting and like the birthing seasons of these lobster, and you fish at the heightened, like when there's a surplus. The Micmac guys can go out and fish anytime because there's only like fucking next to no boats, right? And so that put the settler, the big commercial fisheries argument of they're doing it off season, it's out the window because they're not even making.
And it's supported by the Supreme Court in Canada.
It's their fucking land. It's their fucking land.
These are the crime and punishment side, right? You got to follow the rules side. But again, it doesn't benefit you. Burn the building down.
What people forget about treaties is you can look at them like lease agreements. It's like, hey, can we use your land? Sure, but this is what you have to be able to give us in exchange for using this land. Now, once they stop upholding those lease treaties or the treaties, it's sort of like a lease agreement that you're not following through on your end of the lease. The lease becomes null and void. And that's why I fucking think it's hilarious with these like Alberta Western separatists that are like, we're going to separate from Canada because you don't give a shit about us. You know, if you separate from Canada, you have to renegotiate your leases and the treaties with the indigenous people because it's their fucking land.
Alberta doesn't own that.
No, it's
Saskatchewan.
not fucking Alberta bro land.
Scott Moe doesn't own the land here.
Oh God.
Can you imagine?
Oh man, I went on the Facebook the debate between Ryan Miley and Scott Moe, and I forgot that like as you type, all of those comments are saved. So there's like 15 of my comments heckling Moe. Yeah, and people just kept like, commenting on my shit. So it's like on the permanent record of me.
I was so little troll. You.
I really wanted to ask Ryan Miley if he had ever gotten off scot-free on a vehicular vehicular manslaughter charge.
How many you got under your belt?
Actually,
Danny Knight runs one of the stand-up things with Sean Cuthan, and they do a bunch of stuff together. He's got a joke about that. I don't want to steal it or nothing, but it's something like, you guys hear the one about the premier who killed someone while he was driving? Yeah, he mowed him down, got off scot-free, and right. Danny Knight, folks, every Sunday down at the Capitol. Come check him out. He's going to be down there telling jokes like that. Much better. That's his joke. Don't give me any credit for that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
I thought it was funny.
Well,
and accurate.
And that's just it. So I watched that that debate between the NDP and between the Saskatchewan Party. No green representation, but whatever. It's just those
Hey,
two.
why do we got a two-party? Well, and again, we do have a three-party system, but no one will vote Liberal in this province, and that's the only other option, apparently. Which
So-
I don't blame them.
So I'm watching one guy who, like, it's Scott Moe. The only two words that guy seems to understand are strong and investment. We're going to invest in a strong economy, investments. We're going to invest in this. We're going to invest in that. And you got Ryan Miley, who's a rational fucking individual, who's talking about what actually needs to happen from the ground up to make a better community.
Yeah.
And then the only thing that, God forbid, they touch on racism or indigenous rights. He's like, "Oh, we have a plan for investing." Fuck you,
How are you going
buddy.
to fix the problem with northern communities?
Investments.
Yeah, with your hundreds of billions or millions of dollars deficit.
We're going to invest more.
Then these are the cocksuckers that when they came into power were like, we're going to make it illegal to run a deficit. You'll never be allowed to. 13 years they've been in power. I think 12 fucking deficits.
Oh,
and
man.
significant deficits. And the only time they didn't was like 1 or 2 years in when they were still draining the fucking rainy day from the previous government.
There's an indigenous lady that asked what each platform would do in regards to the indigenous suicides in the north, young people. And Mo acted like it was the first he'd ever fucking heard
Holy
of it.
fuck.
Like he had no clue, you know? And there was this Tristan person, I don't know.
I'm going to say other than water, it might mean, and obviously alcoholism, but like other than water, suicide is the biggest issue in any northern community I know about.
Yes.
Get us clean drinking water and have our kids stop killing themselves.
Yes. And like, what do they try to do? Prohibit alcohol? Like that, there's no, they're going to huff gas. They're going to huff paint.
Well, and
They're
that's
gonna, like,
it's still happening in these dry communities.
Yes, exactly. Well, there's nothing there. There's
they're so
nothing.
remote, they're so
And-
removed.
and abuse happens. You know what I mean? So you got to come up with a strategy. And Miley is like, well, hey, maybe we should invest in like some trauma treatment and some health, and like put some the wealth tax,
Yeah, dude.
and put it into these communities.
Yep.
And he's
Well,
like,
and sorry, and if you're going to uphold this system of reservations, right, where you're going to, well, this land's for them and that's them. Okay, well then here's what we should do. Make it like a fucking theme park of being a native then. You know what I mean? When you come in, you're doing sweat lodges, you're doing ceremonies, you're doing all this native stuff.
allow them their own businesses.
That's what I'm fucking saying. Like, make it be native land when you get there. Instead of this place that, I don't know, many people have been to many reservations, especially in the north. If there's a grocery store or a convenience store, you're lucky. There might be a gas
and
station.
what's the cost of food at those places too?
Everything's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like they're not places anyone would ever go just to fucking vacation or to spend some time unless you know someone who lives there.
And you're paying like $10 for a carton of milk. How can you feed your fucking
That's
family
it, right?
with
Because
that?
even small towns in Saskatchewan still have draws. My small town, they found a great big alligator in the bank of it that's however million years old, fossilized, right? So Big Bert is on the fucking sign when you drive into Carrot River. You know, you want to go for a tour and see where they found it, they do a tour, right? There's shit like that going on. I guarantee it. Cumberland House and Shoal Lake and Red Earth. There's stuff that could be happening, but it's never investment in something to make it a fucking community, right? It's investment to contain the problem.
I have these conversations with my indigenous friends about what truth and reconciliation could look like. And I think there's two aspects. Truth is what really happened with the treaties, what really happened to the indigenous people, and the situation that we're in as a result of that. But also what indigenous beliefs really are. You know what I mean? When it comes to like the medicine wheel and sweats and like ceremony and culture and like the political setup of like some places have matrilineal lineages where the women decide who the leaders are. So like that's the truth part. This is what Native culture really is. Reconciliation would be incorporating that into the Canadian mosaic,
That's
right?
what I'm fucking saying, man. How do we find those things that make it special and significant and great, and that give people an attachment to their heritage that makes them proud and actually want to contribute to it?
I am Canadian. I'm an Indigenous Canadian.
And how
as
fucking
opposed
cool would
to
it be, man,
I'm
to-
not a Canadian because Canada keeps telling me
Wow.
I don't fucking belong.
Right? Yeah. Right. Eh? But and
fucking
how
kills me,
cool would
man.
it be too? Like if there was more connectivity with that. I think there's lots of fucking people that have never been to any kind of ceremony like that would have a very significant experience and a change in attitude if they had.
Oh, sweat
You know?
lodges, smudging,
That's the
all
one I'm
of it,
thinking of
right?
specifically. You go do something transformative like that. it's man, I don't know. I think it would just be good for everybody. More interaction with our different cultures, right?
See, my understanding is they make a lot of that available in the prison systems, like healing lodges and stuff like that. But not a lot of people are taking into it because it's really not been made cool. There's a really good,
and you've got all these broken people. You know what I mean?
right?
That like that isn't the way that isn't a way that I fix myself.
How do you put forward culture?
Yeah.
Music?
Well, it's got to be
food?
part of your community,
Yes.
right?
So there's Tribe Called Red. You ever hear that?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Great group from Winnipeg, and they kind of mash up like honor songs and powwow songs with like the dance music. There's Equal from I think she's from Saskatoon. She's a hip hop artist. There's another girl. I know her Instagram name is Beads, Rhymes, and Life, as opposed to Tribe Called Quest, Beats, Rhymes, and Life. And there's a bunch of young indigenous artists coming up and doing culturally conscious music. And I think this is a step towards that, is creating a culture of indigenous awareness that's not only cool for indigenous kids, but also cool for settler kids to understand indigenous culture a little better. And that builds bridges, as opposed to this bullshit I fucking see with, like, you know, the blockades, and like so many people were angry at them.
Divisive. Well, and again, these people would normally, if they knew who the real villains were in this, the CEOs of these oil companies and shit like that, that's who everybody would be mad at. We'd all be mad at that. But there is a concerted effort. That's why the same companies that own oil companies will also own media outlets. Right? Why? Oh, because it's profitable? Media ain't that profitable anymore. Nobody's making money off fucking nose. That's it, right? It's profitable in the way that you can continue to sway public influence and lobby, basically, by having the right articles come out in the right fucking newspapers. And then these politicians can glob onto it and then go, well, see, but in this one from Calgary, it says this, and that one from Regina, the Leader Post says this, and...
You know what I find interesting, because you pointed on this before with Trump's projection on other people of what they're doing. With my right-wing friends, especially when it comes to like climate change and like, you know, that kind of stuff, and like fossil fuels and the energy sector, they're so eager to say that the scientists that are saying that climate change is real and it's largely as a result of fossil fuel and deforestation, that's who's paying for those scientists. Who are the ones that are financing those researches? When really the facts of the matter are, the people that are actually paying for scientific research are big oil, that are paying flawed studies to be propagated, and like whack job scientists with loud claims with a lot of money to boost it on different platforms, as opposed to be equally loud, or almost equally loud, to legitimate science. But they're saying the legitimate science is fake science, and they're listening to their fake science as legitimate science because it's heavily subsidized and paid for
and
by people with a lot of money.
It's the one that doesn't make them self-analyze what they're doing.
Yes.
Well, what I'm doing contributes to this problem. Well, no, these guys say it's not. So guess who I fucking believe? Because I don't think I'm part of a problem by living my life. I don't go out trying to be a problem. I'm just trying to make money. And the way I could make money was through the oil patch or through something else. And what fucking pisses me off about this stuff is that as soon as you change your mind and go, well, you know what, I can make money off that too. Guess what? You're going to make money off solar. You're going to make money off wind. You're going to make money off water. You're going to make money off these other sources of fucking energy if that's what you want to do. But again, well, I've worked so hard to get to this place where I'm sort of comfortable. Well, no, I can't possibly give that up.
Change is uncomfortable.
And no one's going to have to give it up. Again, they keep when people see this kind of shit, it's like, oh, what? So I got to lose my house and I got to lose my truck and my kids can't get the fucking school and they need and I can't buy the clothes I want. Oh, because everybody else doesn't want to use oil. And it's like, no, in my vision of this, you still have a job. You know what? Maybe you've even got a better job. Exactly. Just shift your fucking energy. Did I break 2 of these now?
Oh, maybe. But
fucking
that's
right.
So, but that's it's the
Unreal.
same thing with animal agriculture.
Livestock grade, I guess.
Well, livestock. Right?
Actually, sorry, before we get too far. Last night we're doing stand up. The fucking waitress comes around and she talks to the table behind me. It was all comics behind me, and then she's like, "Hey, did anybody want a menu?" Blah blah blah. And she leaves, and I'm sitting by the table with myself. And she comes over. "Hey, did you want a menu?" I'm like, "No, I'm good." And she leaves. And I turn around and go to them. "Hey, did she call any of you guys a fat cunt when she was asking if you wanted a menu?" And they're like, "What? What?" And I'm like, "Oh, it was just me then? It was just me she called a fat cunt and asked if I wanted a menu?" And they're like, "No way, did she do that?" I'm like, "You guys are comedians, right? Like, we're trying to fucking have a laugh here. I'm joking about that." They're, "Oh, but you were just so serious when you said it." I'm like, "Yeah, but can you seriously?"
My heart is breaking as I speak.
Yeah. Can you picture somebody being like, "Oh, can I get you I get you a menu, you fat cunt?" Oh,
True
what?
story.
Why do you think you can get away with that? Talk to me like that.
When I was in Japan, I'm huge in Japan. I'm like a
height-wise,
quadruple
right?
extra large
Yeah,
in
fair
Japan.
enough, yeah.
And so I went to the ramen house, and fucking world-class ramen in Japan. Like,
yeah. Hey,
right?
that's
So,
what the travel.
so I go in there and I'm like, I'd like a large. And he's like, large? And he holds up a medium bowl. I'm like, a medium? He's like, medium. So they kind of decided what I should be ordering for me. Thanks, culture, for letting me. Yeah.
Not that you could eat a large. You just shouldn't.
That's
eat
exactly it, right? Yeah. He's like, large? And he's holding them up. And I'm like,
No, I think your fucking shirt looks like a large. Let's get your ass into a medium.
that's exactly what they did. I'm like,
You,
okay,
yeah. What the fuck? Yeah, you've been hanging with my grandmother? Is that what's going on here?
Well, and that was just, and it was such a positive thing. He's like, yeah, good one. Medium is what you want, right? And I'm like, I guess. Fuck, Just stop by 7-Eleven on the way home.
Yeah, I
you
got
know.
a pocket full of cookies. I'll be fine. You piece of shit.
Welcome to Canada. We are insulated mammals here.
Fuck, that's fine.
I was joking with the girlfriend that I don't know. There's something about the weather that I think this is humidity or lack of it. All my clothes are starting to shrink. You
Yeah,
know,
I
they're
don't know
going
what's
down in
going
size.
on.
Yeah, I don't know.
I put on a jacket today that I was like, I had it on last winter, and I'm like, I don't know, legitimately, this is a large. I don't think I'm going to get into it. And I just got it on. The old lady's like, well, see, it fits. I'm like, I'm naked under here, though. I can't put a shirt on.
guy
I can't-
in a little
yeah,
coat.
that's exactly what it was. Yeah. So I gotta start streamlining a little bit here so my fucking snowboard clothes at least fit come this winter. Because if I gotta buy a whole new fucking bunch of gear, I'm gonna be bummed.
Well, you know.
Well, no, maybe not. I love buying new snowboard and stuff.
Well, you know, I cut my finger, and that
like the
gave
rich
me
bitch I am.
4 days off training, and that's all it takes for me to start feeling like I'm like, oh my god, my clothes don't fit right, and, and it's all in my brain,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I got to figure some stuff out, and I'm thinking I'm going to do the weight stuff at the gym, and I'm going to start doing the yoga thing at home, right? And I do have this DDP yoga, and I have it set aside. And DDP yoga used to be called YRG, Yoga for Regular Guys. But DDP is Diamond Dallas Page, the WWF wrestler. And he had fucked his back really bad from both wrestling and football. And apparently getting into yoga allowed him to get his mobility back. And he's like a legitimate yoga teacher. You go online and they're like, yeah, it's macho and he's gruff and he's like, right on, hulk it up and like stuff like that. But it's legitimate yoga. And,
Well, and that's who it's for, I think, right? Like,
it is.
the
It's a reformative
macho kind of fucking guy. You want to do this because it's beneficial for anybody.
beer drinking bros. You know,
Right.
that's just
Yeah.
it. And it's a reformative program where if you're damaged and you can only touch your knees and not your toes, as opposed to like these yoga people at the yoga studios that can put like their elbows to their knees and their palms on the floor, he tells you do it modified until you can go below your knees, until you can touch your shins. You know, it's like it's graduated like that. So I think I'm going to start doing the flexibility game when I'm at home. You know, do some yoga in the evenings and do some weights and during the day and do something to keep myself flexible as well as trying to get the strong thing. But
Well,
realistically,
and you'll have better of both, right?
Yes.
Anytime you're more flexible and better balanced, your weightlifting is gonna be everything's gonna be fucking better.
Yes.
I think honestly, like look, yoga is a fucking thing that doesn't matter your size. It's just find the thing that you can do that works for you, and that's why that DDP one's nice because, like you said, it's modified. Like my stepdad was doing it, and he was like, yeah, I know it was great because exactly I couldn't touch my toes, but he said it was even like you can't get out of bed. Okay, well let's do this from bed.
he's got a
You know what I mean?
program for waking up in the morning. You do these 5-6 exercises just to limber yourself while you're laying in bed.
Fucking
you know,
nice.
and that's pretty cool to have that as an option and to be part of a legitimate yoga tradition. See, hatha yoga is only one path of yoga. There's supposed to be like 12 different ones. There's like karma yoga, there's bhakti yoga, there's raja yoga, there's yani yoga, depending on the style, and all of those are supposed to try to allow the individual to awaken to their true self. The hatha yoga, which is all the physical exercises, is supposed to be preparation for the rest of it, right? So what is it? Bhakti yoga is what they call the yoga of love, which would be generosity and compassion. It's kind of what Christ was talking about with, treat your neighbor, love thy neighbor is bhakti yoga. Karma yoga is dedicating the things you do, daily exercises, going to work, being conscious of the consequences of your actions. Always. That's the karma yoga. You become a better person and you realize who you really are by just paying attention to the consequences of your actions, which is karma. There's a Raja yoga is a system of meditation. There's Kundalini yoga, which is what we talk about when we talk about the chakras.
Yeah, that's some third eye opening shit.
Yeah, eventually, right? Moving all up.
Well, and I find it interesting too that you said that like the physical one was kind of like what you start with, because that makes sense. Like how do you get into a 2-hour Kundalini fucking session if you can't sit with your legs crossed and stay comfortable for that amount of time, right? If you don't have the flexibility for that, how do you do that, right? And yeah, I think that's holding a lot of fucking people back, right? Because if you can't touch your toes, how can you touch your soul?
Yeah, right. See, yeah, exactly. Well, that preparatory thing. Well, and if you think about it, I'm not sure about the order of yogas that you would work, but like even when you look at the Kundalini yoga, the base root chakra, your Muladhara chakra, is physical reality. So why wouldn't you start with physical yoga? Then you move up to like your sexual chakra, your power chakra, your compassion chakra, understanding or communication chakra, then understanding, and then enlightenment, right? So that's the hierarchy. One of my favorite books on this stuff is by a crazy little fucking doctor in the 60s that went to India, psychedelic guy, friend of Timothy Leary's. They did a whole bunch of LSD testing, and he's like, well, something happened to me on LSD, so I better go to India and find out about this shit. It's Be Here Now by Baba Ram Das, or Ramdas S, I think. And Be Here Now, it like the first part is his story about how he tripped balls, realized there was more to life, went to India, met a guru, crazy shit happened, so he started following the guru. The second one is him probably tripping balls.
That's a fun-looking book to read.
It is. This is definitely, if you happen to get lifted and want to look through it, you're more than welcome to. I'll lend this to you to check it out. And then the last one, what does he call it? I think it's a cookbook for a sacred life. So it's got all these different, what's it called, methodologies from Sufism, from Islam, from Christianity, from Chinese philosophy, and from yoga, Hindu philosophy, on meditation, on yoga, on consciousness, awakening, also psychedelics. So it's a really cool book. And it's about $20. You can get it at McNally Robinson. You could find them used all the time. I've got a couple copies just because I end up gifting them to people all the time. So here you go, man. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a game changer.
I'm actually kind of excited to get
it's
into
called
this.
Be Here Now. And the middle
I
section,
dig this.
it's just trips balls. It's like a collage of art and philosophy.
Like I just opened this up, and the first line I read is, "If I give you the external things, I'm a good parent." Hey?
But what about those internal things? So Be Here Now is a good one, and it's one of my favorite books. I first read it in my 20s, and it kind of set me off on all kinds of crazy trips. I think it was integral when I had my PTSD breakdowns.
Fuck, yeah, this
and
looks
some
wild,
crazy enlightenment stuff. So I recommend it to anybody who's interested in yoga on any depth level. Plus, there's actually physical exercises. He's got a yoga program in the back, or at least 5 or 6 different asanas is what they're called, or positions, that you can work through.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me too that like it seems like lots of the Eastern kind of religions, a lot of times practicality and mechanism are built into it. This is how you should bend. This is how you should breathe. This is how you should eat to have this spiritual existence. And then when you do a lot of those things, they do bring balance into your physical body. So even if you did them without the dogma attached to them, you'd still be much better off, at least physically, in the world.
Well, exactly. Like they say that, to them, that spinal health is your spiritual health, according to yoga, right? So if you've got a flexible spine, everything else moves up and down on an energy level. But if you really tense and you aren't mobility, then you've got blockages on a spiritual level. Like they think that the body is a mirror of the spirit and the psyche and the consciousness, right?
And what ruins your day quicker than waking up in pain?
Yeah.
Right? You get up in pain, you get back pain, for example, and you can't walk and you're hunched over. It can be tough finding enlightenment that day. You know what I mean? You're going to be like, you're going to be looking for beer or coffee or weed or whatever the
Something
thing it
to
is that
help you
gets you
get
through
through.
it for a bit.
But if you do like 5-10 minutes,
exactly. You got to ride that dragoon. Get on that dragon, bullet's tail.
start fucking mainlining right out. Wake up, tie off.
Feel a little stiff today. Give me that H.
Straight morphine. All right, there we go. We're good to go. Yeah, so that's kind of the deal with yoga, where 10 minutes in the morning and you might be a little more prepped. It's weird, those like big companies, the Japanese companies, they legitimately, maybe even Chinese, they do calisthenics. You get to work and everybody lines up and they do their calisthenics to get the blood flowing and to get everything loosened up, and you're kind of, okay, let's do this thing, right? So I think that's an important element, is your physical health as much as emotional or political or social or, psychological, right? Any this isn't really related, so yeah, we can. A buddy of mine has a new band from Victoria, of my buddy John, actually, the Choice Few, and they have a song up on YouTube called One Way Streets, and they kind of bringing back that 1970s oi street punk style, kind of like Old Firm Casual style, but a little more rocky, and it's funny because I told him, I showed my girlfriend that, and she's like, oh, that sounds like that other band you listen to. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much every band I listen to now. And so I messaged that to him, and he's like, well, which bands? And I'm like, I think it's probably like Coxbar and stuff like that. And he's like, cool. Well, do you want some? I'm like, well, I wanted to send you a flash drive because I know he's a record collector and a music collector. I'm like, why don't I send you a flash drive? You just fill it up with a bunch of music and send it back to me. He's like, well, why don't you just check out my Dropbox? So he sent me 2 links to these huge folders full of like oi, and I've got an old iPod that all the music is just straight up oi now. It's like so cool, yeah. But it's old, so I have to plug it into a headphones or the audio jack, and it doesn't have a speaker. It's an old enough iPod that you can't hear it without a jack in there. But it's cool, yeah. I listen to that at work.
It's the next best thing to getting a tape.
Yeah, cassette. I got you a cassette. Yeah. Oh fuck! Now I gotta find something to play this on.
Yeah.
You guys playing anytime soon?
Nope, not by the looks of it. No, we fucking we were looking forward to getting some shows going, but now the COVID numbers are going up in the province, and it sure as fuck looks like they're rolling everything back, like talking about shutting down nightclubs and shit again. And
what about writing and recording?
Well, okay, so that's something we have been working on. We've been working on and off, and now it's kind of like, well, maybe we should just fucking put more time into writing, because we do have a few that we're probably ready to record, and then there's a couple that are like close enough with a bit of work, we'd have something that we're ready to record. So yeah, it would be nice. I guess if it's gonna be fucking slow and we can't do shows, that'd be the time to do that shit.
Do you guys have anything up on YouTube if people want to check it out?
No, I don't think we have. I think it's just a
Holy
Facebook page.
fuck.
I know, man.
That's one of the simplest platforms to get your shit out.
Why don't we have any of this on YouTube? You know what I mean? Like,
I guess, yeah.
say, I'm doing it. That's the reason. This is not happening. Yeah. No. So yeah, we should do that. But yeah, our Facebook page, Old Tolerated. We've got some like live footage and shit up on there. Nothing like studio recorded yet. And then the Tahitian Room. I think that he puts up all of his backlogs of his videos and shit after he live streams them. So if you guys looking for something fun, check that out, because we did that, and there's been a bunch of other local bands been putting in sets of it. And actually, this probably won't be out in time, but this Saturday I'm going to do a stand-up set on the Tahitian Room fucking podcast thing, or live stream. And so we'll see how that goes, because I told Corey I had a half hour's worth of material. But
so with the Tahitian Room, where's his backlogs? So if this doesn't
it'd
come
be
out,
all in the Facebook page, I believe.
so you go to
Tahitian Room
Facebook Tahitian Room, and you should be able to find your stand-up if somebody.
Yeah,
anybody's
absolutely.
looking.
Should be able to find that on there too.
Yeah. by the time that-
So yeah, actually, I've been really fucking stoked about it. I went and did some more last night, and because it's kind of just all on me. Like nobody's like, hey, you got to go do this. I'm like, oh, okay, so go do it now. And again, I've been feeling like up and down lots, like depression wise. And even yesterday, I wasn't really feeling it. And like, it was supposed to be like 7:30 to sign up, and it was like 7:45, and I hadn't left the house. And I'm like, fuck, am I gonna do this? But then I did, and I felt much better, and it was really fun. And I'm enjoying now like the time before the sets start, because a lot of the other comedians are bringing in their notepads and shit like that, and they're working stuff while they're sitting there. So it is funny as fuck. Like, listen, everybody kind of bounce ideas off. And yeah, it was actually funny. We're talking with Fabian yesterday, and we started talking about that Oscar Pistorius or whatever his name was, the Blade Runner that shot his girlfriend through the fucking bathroom door.
Oh, I haven't heard anything.
That
about
was the
this.
guy with the he had those. They called him the Blade Runner. He had those. He had stumps for legs, and he had those backwards fucking spring things.
Okay.
And he was like an Olympian. You know what I mean? And I don't know what the fucking like.
Jesus fuck! I haven't heard a goddamn.
Oh really?
Thing
South
about
Africa. This guy's a South African dude. He won
the Blade Runner. They shot his girlfriend.
I think
I'm like,
gold at the Olympics or whatever with these fucking reverse legs, and then he shot and killed his girlfriend or fiance or whatever she was in, I believe, a hotel room. She was in the bathroom, and he shot her through the door and shot a whole bunch of fucking times. And
so intentionally.
Oh, absolutely,
okay,
absolutely.
Okay. It wasn't like, pow, oh shit.
And I don't know that because I know he was charged. I know it went to court. I don't remember what the fuck, how it all worked out, whether or not he went to jail. But I don't think he did, because I think he had some sort of fucking excuse about how he was scared and didn't know who it was. And then trying to use like almost trying to use his disability of having stumps as like kind of like, well, but I mean, look, and it's like, you're one of the fastest
accountable.
people in the fucking world on these spring legs, and you're not like, it wasn't a brain
You
injury.
could fucking kangaroo
you know what
down
I mean?
the stairs
You lop my
pretty
legs off,
goddamn
I
quick.
still know right or wrong. I still know whether or not to shoot through a fucking door. You know what I mean? So anyways, we're kind of just riffing about that a little bit before, and he's like, yeah, can you picture him like trying to shoot this handgun and like rolling over backwards, you know what I mean? I said it would get to a point where he'd have to take his one stump and jam it up against the wall, so he's got like something to kind of like,
But if there's
push
those
off
springy
of.
things, it's
Yeah,
like having
we
a stock,
didn't
right?
have him on, I don't
A bump
think.
stock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's got like a bump stock. Exactly. The Oscar Pistorius bump stop.
Let's laugh at handicapped
So that was
people.
kind of fun. It's like, wow. Yeah, I don't know. He's kind of the bad guy in this situation. I think it's okay
You're
to laugh
different
at him.
than me.
Yeah, that wasn't the reason. It was the murdering that we were making fun of him for. It was just a happy coincidence he had stumps. But yeah, so we were fucking around with stuff like that before, and I'm really enjoying that. And somebody called me a comedian last night.
Oh,
Like,
no.
how long have you been a comedian? And I'm like, fuck, I think since just now. No one else has said it ever before. So I guess it's official now. So yeah, it's fucking fun, man. I'm enjoying
This goes
it.
back to my theory, you follow what you really love and the doors will open for you, if it's meant to be and you're not struggling against, I really want to be a basketball player. Well, fuck, I'm 5 foot tall, 5'7". I'm not going to fucking do it.
Yeah.
But if it's something that you're good at and it's a natural like evolution, then the doors will open their way for
Well,
you.
and sometimes I think with shit like that, like nature keeps pushing you towards things you're supposed to do, and if you're actively working against it, you keep having a rough time. There's a reason lots of things haven't worked out for me so far in my life, I feel, as far as like career-wise and shit like that, because none of it was what I was supposed to be fucking doing.
I'm not really good at kissing ass. That's a big part of my thing, right? So it doesn't matter. So
I
I
think
think
it's benefited me the more honest and forthright I am. A lot of times it's painful for a second, but a lot of times it's better.
See, and that's a funny thing, is that I like to think I'm a personable individual, like one-on-one or small groups. Like, as long as I'm clicking with the people, yeah, we all laugh, we all have a good time. But when I start having this kind of like, sorry, I don't agree with your politics or your morality or what you're trying to do here, or you're a bit of a bully, there's a bit of grinding that happens. You know what I mean? And that's when...
Well, and I feel it myself, and I don't know if it's the same for you, but a lot of times I feel like, oh, so no one else is going to say it? You know what I mean? I'm looking around the room and everybody else is uncomfortable. And
everybody
it's like,
else is gutless.
okay, I guess I'm the one. I guess I'll do it. And everybody else going, no, we weren't thinking that. We were having a nice, pleasant evening. I don't know why you're so worked up.
Really? See, this is a bit of an issue for me, where like the
Who am I
lack
saying
of
this for?
testicular fortitude. You know what I mean?
There's a fair bit of that.
This goes to a story about a time I got beat up. So we went to Goat Whore. We might have talked about it before. I don't know. I went to one of my favorite bands, a band called Ringworm, old school Cleveland hardcore, and they played with this kind of like borderline death metal, black metal band called Goat Whore. And they were at the Odeon. And we show up, me and my brother, and I think it was just us. We ran into a bunch of people we knew there. But there's the pit, and everybody's dancing, and there's this big goon, shaved head, skinhead with like Nazi tattoos and stuff. And anybody that comes near him or his girlfriend, he just starts plowing in the face, running across the floor, hitting him in the face. And we're like, what the fuck's with this guy, If you don't want him getting close to you, step back from the pit, right? And so, we mentioning to the bouncers, hey, what about that guy? They blow it off. They won't do anything because the guy's intimidating. He's covered in tattoos and he's big and he's got a shaved head and a leather vest. Like, holy fuck, watch out, right? So we're all outside in between the two bands, and I danced around a ringworm, and I kind of recognized this guy, and he kind of recognized me. So we're in between the bands. Everybody's having a smoke. They're like, what's the deal with that fucking Nazi? The big goon who's punching everybody. I'm like, I don't know. The bouncers aren't doing shit. So we go back in. He keeps doing it. He's done it like 4 or 5 times. And I went to the bouncers. I point at this guy. I'm like, that fucking dude keeps punching people for no reason. They're like, oh, I didn't see it. So I go up to one of the Asian bartenders. I'm like, hey, man, there's a Nazi in the pit, and he's punching people for no fucking reason. He's like, what? So he points at the bouncers. They still won't do anything. So I'm like, well, Jesus Christ. And I'm looking at my brother, and I'm like, stupid is going to happen real soon. Did I tell you this story already?
I've heard it before, but I enjoy it. Yeah.
Whatever. So all of a sudden, this guy fucking ground and pounds some random kid, and I jump in and I shove him off. Oh, and then he starts punching me in the head, and I dislocate my ankle. But everybody kind of stepped in.
That's where this story started the last time, was your dislocating ankle stories that kept perpetuating the dislocated ankle.
Dislocated
It made me laugh so
ankles.
fucking hard.
But this goes back to my principle where you said, is nobody else going to say anything? This is where I see that so fucking much that like, is everybody else gutless here?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck's it take for somebody to stand up to that bad guy? And Edmund Burke said it, that all that is necessary for evil to be triumphant is good men to say nothing, or good men to do nothing. So if we just let what's happening down in the States go without anybody saying anything,
no critique.
That's just the way it is, and nobody's willing to stand up, then they win. That's all it takes for evil in the world to win, is for good men to do nothing. And that's how I looked at that. You know, is nobody else saying anything? Is nobody else doing anything? I guess I've got to be the guy at 5'7", like that tackles this dude off the guy he's ground and pounding when there's a fucking 150 people standing around. You know, but
No one wants
I'm
to
the
step
guy
up.
who has to do it, and then then I get the reputation as being the wild card or the crazy guy. Well, fuck, because you're ballless. You know, like fuck.
Maybe you start hitting that fucking testosterone treatment. Maybe I wouldn't have to do this. You know what I mean?
8 people could have easily swarmed that guy, and not a single one would have taken a shot to the head. But I have to run across the crowd to tackle him because he's got tattoos or because they're afraid of him. Like, fuck off with this shit. You know, kick those assholes out of the fucking scene. Don't let that shit go. And you know, it's funny because I got this reputation as being a fucking whatever, crazy or a little bit of a psycho. But no, I'm not a fucking bully. I never will fucking bully people or pick on somebody or victimize somebody for no fucking reason. But I will say, hey man, you're out of line. That's what I'll do. I'll say you're out of line when nobody else will say you're out of fucking line.
A lot of times that looks like bullying people, right? They go,
I
well,
guess.
why couldn't you just not say anything? Why couldn't you just let it be?
He's just having fun.
Why should I have to?
At people's expense.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
Why should I have to be uncomfortable because he wants to make everybody uncomfortable?
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to.
I don't know.
And I can actually physically do something about it. And that's how I feel a lot of times too. Is I keep feeling it's like people who just they couldn't say anything. You know what I mean? And what's wild is like growing up. Every once in a while, I'd done that. Like with my mother, I've been like, no, I'm going to fucking stand up. And she'd thank me. Thank you so much for saying something I didn't think I could.
Well,
and when I get that, then I'm like, oh, okay. For the rest of my life, then, this is what I will do. Because clearly there's some people that just can't do it. And if I can be that for them, whatever. I'll wear that. I'll take a fucking beating or whatever the fuck it is. Because I thought that's what we were supposed to be.
Well,
you know what I mean?
what?
Isn't that kind of what being a fucking man was supposed to be about?
Being a man,
You know what I mean?
right?
And it's toxic and it's shitty and blah, 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 blah,
Is
blah.
it protecting those that can't protect themselves
you
is
still
not
just got to
toxicity?
change the tire.
Well,
You know what I mean? Sometimes you still just got to
Helping
put
those
the
that can't
fucking
help
work
themselves.
in.
Helping
Yep.
those that can't help themselves. Protecting those that can't protect themselves. Speaking up for those that can't speak for themselves. This is what I think is noble and valor. And these are the aspects that have been forgotten. And unfortunately, that I, me, and mine, if I can gain from this, that's not fucking chivalry.
Well, and a lot of it's been co-opted too by these gross ideals where people are like, well, no, I'm standing up for my culture or for my color. You know what I mean? I'm being the voice for that. And it's like, no, you're not being the voice of somebody being oppressed. You're doing this to try and maintain the status quo.
You're trying to maintain superiority.
Fucking right.
As opposed to, you know, lifting those that can't lift themselves. And I think that's a problem. Like, Machine Gun Preacher. You ever hear this guy? Sam I'm going to look up his name. But if you look up Machine Gun Preacher, there was, who's the guy from 300, the Leonidas in 300?
Oh, fuck, I know who you're talking
Yeah,
about.
he did a movie based on this guy's.
Yep. Okay,
I think
yep.
it's Sam Chiders is his name. He was one of the Outlaw Motorcycle Club. He was like a needle junkie, bad guy, shot people, went to jail, all kinds of craziness. Found God, became a pastor, and then he found out what was happening, I think, in Uganda. Gerard Butler was the actor, yes.
Thank you, Russell.
So he found out what was happening in Uganda when he went on a missionary kind of work, and he's like, what's the deal with all these kids being kidnapped and their parents having their hands chopped off? And they're like, they're child soldiers. He's like, why isn't nobody doing anything? So he fucking put his money where his mouth is, and he went there and he started liberating these fucking kids from these
I'm
like,
talking about.
right? Exactly.
Hey, you bad motherfuckers out there think you're a bad motherfucker?
Go to fucking Uganda
Go do
and
some
save
shit like
fucking
that.
kids.
Go
Like,
do some shit
talk
like
about
that.
people that are speaking up for those that don't have a voice.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Do you know the story of the MMA fighter Justin Wren? W-R-E-N. Great story. Look into it. Joe Rogan's had him on his podcast a few times, and he's a guy. He donates like 95% or 100% of his winnings through MMA to pygmy people in the Congo because he'd gone on like some sort of I don't what the fuck's it called, like a missionary kind of fucking thing, but I don't know if that's what it was. But he was in this thing into the Congo trying to get water for these indigenous people that lived there, right? Because they just didn't have wells, they didn't have shit like that. So he's trying to get this all set up and help him with that. And then while he's there, he just falls in love with these pygmy people and finds out that they're still treated as animals. Like people would actively hunt them, they would eat them, they would keep them as pets. Like, and this is today, tomorrow, next week, this is still happening. And this guy, Justin Wren, is like, oh, this is what I need to do with my life. I need to be a cage fighter who uses all of his winnings to put it back in to help these fucking beautiful people who are being treated as how people, the pictures you've seen of them with Aborigines in 1910 and that shit, you guys, everybody's clicking likes on fucking Facebook, happening right now in the Congo. Right now. And so, yeah, that's if anybody's listening, Justin Wren, check his shit out. Because, again, I would love to see more of this. Like, last week when I was like, why isn't Bezos Batman? And you give me shit about Batman. But, like, you know, these guys that are like, I'm fucking living in this world of militias and I'm going to protect mine and I've got an armory and I've got all this shit. Dude, you want to do that? You want to actually do that? You can go to some fucking third world country right now where this shit is actually happening, where there are pedophilia rings taking the fucking children and making child slavers and shit.
Yeah, child soldiers giving kids AK-47s and having them shoot their own parents. Like, fuck. So this, I think his name's Sam Chiders. I could be wrong, but he set up straight up orphanages for child soldiers that they were able to extract and fucking. And then he had to set up perimeters with guns to protect, because he's like, warlords would want their soldiers back, so they'd be getting in gunfights over the kids. Right? It's fucking nuts.
That's nuts. But hey, fucking crazy biker fucking gun runner, and all of a sudden, no, I found God. But
I found a place for me.
I still know how to fuck around.
I'm still a motherfucker. I know where I belong, right?
That's what I'm saying. Put that energy where it needs to be, right? You do that shit and running a gang and being a piece of shit, that's negative energy. You put that shit into a third world country and you're actually trying to help. And not there to pull resources out, not there to figure out how to get these kids away from these child soldiers so that you can keep them for your own. You know what I mean? You're not doing that shit
for an excuse to kill people.
Right.
You know, I hear
Eric
about
Prince.
this all the time. You know, who is that?
Eric Prince. That's the guy who used to run Blackwater. That's Betsy DeVos's brother.
Okay, I don't know Betsy.
She's the Minister of Education for the United States of America.
Oh, really? It's that tight?
Absolute moron. And Eric Prince, after Trump became president,
Fucking
I'm just saying,
memory
if
on this
you let me talk about it, but Eric Prince, after Trump became president, he had him come in and meet with the Joint Chiefs of Staff to try and make him run a private war in Afghanistan from now on. It would no longer be a U.S. government war. It would be much like Blackwater.
A mercenary army.
Yes, which isn't allowed to operate anymore because they kept fucking killing civilians because they're mercenaries. That's Eric Prince, Betsy DeVos's brother.
And they are not bound by the court martialing or any consequences of exactly.
Who do you trick them back to when they're multinational mercenaries?
A corporation that's
Fucking
very
rates,
well paid. Like, those mercenaries aren't doing it on the cheap. They aren't getting like army wages. They're getting fucking mercenary wages. They're the highest bidder, highest outfitted, highest paid, and they are above and beyond court-martial consequences of their actions. What happened? That guy who did that thing, we don't know who he is. He didn't have a name tag. He wasn't a soldier. He was just a guy with fucking guns and money. You know, that those corporations, and the fact that they're in cahoots with the American government to that point, that scares me.
Yep.
Like,
Eric Prince was a cutout for the Trump campaign that in the Seychelles Islands met with this fucking Russian oligarch to see, and another guy that was supposed to give information to Rudy Giuliani, all before the election that Trump stole. You know what I mean? Like, he's been
what
doing.
is a cutout?
He was someone who was meeting with these Russian oligarchs on behalf of the campaign.
Okay, so he's like a middleman.
Yep,
who's like a
mercenary would be.
good American bro, but not really officially connected. That can go in introduce himself to Russian criminal overlords.
And a motherfucker who can hold his own then because he's a mercenary.
Oh, and he's
not one of these businessmen or lawyers like all these. You couldn't send a Michael
guys.
Cohen who's been I've been a tough guy, a New York lawyer. Okay, you want to go talk to the Mossad?
Yeah.
You want to go talk to the Saudis? You want to go talk to these Russian oligarchs?
Mafia?
Bitch, you're not on that fucking level. But a guy who used to run Blackwater can probably hold his own.
Well, with a team of other heavily armed dudes, like the top echelons of his team, he's like, oh, you're a motherfucker, you're a motherfucker, you're a motherfucker. Cool, we're all armed, we're all well trained. We're gonna go in our little black SUV, and all of us are personal protection. So these groups like Blackwater are filled with the guys that they hire out to protect presidents, to protect the wealthy, to protect, and that's their job, is just being professional, violent motherfuckers, you know? And if you could take your energy, you want to join a group like that and do good with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And go like liberate the Congo. But when you it's funny, we were talking about Saskatchewan being District 12 of Canada or North America, where we're the farmers and the miners, and we're still making a living. We are still living by Canadian standards of, largely, at least most of us, I know the indigenous culture is a little less, well, a lot less well off, but we're living by
barely. There's barely a difference between the indigenous culture and how we
Yes.
are.
So,
No,
but
wrong.
you compare that on a global scale to
Yeah.
the global District
Yeah.
12, you're looking at Africa that has like such a deep well of natural resources, minerals, that these colonial, oligarchs, colonial, like rich motherfuckers are just pulling from. And they don't even give a shit how it's coming out of there. Blood diamonds, oil, fucking natural minerals. What's the other one that the Elon Musk has been fucking lithium?
Oh, sure,
the
for his
lithium
batteries,
mines.
yep. Well, and people.
Yeah, well, right.
Like they've been rough on Africa. Actually, it was funny.
They've been rough on
I've seen a
Africa,
meme.
I
It was
hear.
about the Dutch. And they're like, hey, the Dutch in Europe. And it's like, they're smiling and there's the rosy cheeks, hey, and shit. And then they're like the Dutch in Africa. And they're just bathed in fucking blood with like skulls in each hand, eh? Because that's what it was like when they're colonizing
King
shit,
Leopold. If you look up King Leopold, he did some fucking insane shit down in the African, I guess, continent.
So yeah, what I'm getting at is, I guess, if any militia folks are listening, you guys want to go play that fucking game and do it for real, there's a place to go and do it.
But it's not white people.
No,
Yeah, no.
because it doesn't align with their racism then, right?
Exactly, and that's what
I want to play it the way I want to play it.
That's what it really, really boils down to. It is that colonialism does not give a shit about non-colonials. Mm-hmm. You've got the rulers and the ruled, and that's
Actually, the one kid who's been doing stand up, he's got a joke about his old man's Eastern European, and he's like, but it's like not one of those conquering Europeans. He was one of the conked. He keeps saying it.
The
Not one of the conquerors. He's going to the conked.
all right. We got anything else
Ephraim.
coming up here?
What else is coming up? Yeah, like I said, I'm going to do that thing on Saturday, and then that'll be up for eternity, so you can check it out whenever. Tahitian Room, and I'm going to try out. Oh, well, some of it'll be brand fucking new, never done before, and some of it'll be stuff I've at least tried out on other human beings. But hopefully, it'll be funny. And yeah, doesn't sound like there'll be any shows for a hot minute here, but it's fucking what it is, right? We're living in a pandemic.
Speaking of MMA, I've been watching.
we?
We were.
Just kidding. I just kidding.
Yeah, the callback.
Hey, what an asshole! Eh?
Fucking
You're
laugh
like,
right,
well, this is
yeah.
the last one. Wrap it up. It's been a real trip. Hope you guys had fun.
Remember that time you fucked with me at the end of that podcast?
Who knew that was the straw? Who knew?
Well, I was thinking about that MMA fighter. I've been watching this show on Netflix called Kingdom, and it's an interesting series about a family that runs an MMA gym and just kind of drama that surrounds
HBO?
Netflix. I'm not sure who put it out. I think it might actually be a Netflix series. But it reminded me of a common friend of ours that ran an MMA gym in town who also runs Bartari Video Game Lounge, Dave Ma, and I'd like to get him on here if we can kind of convince him. I don't know how well he can hang with these wet comedian types because he's such a dry sense of humor. But that motherfucker's got a sense of humor.
I think it'd be a great one, honestly. You'd be a
Yes.
good listener, be a good watcher, too. Because anybody hearing Dave and then all of a sudden you see him, you're like, wait a minute, what?
I forget who it was. Somebody told me,
That guy
he's
doesn't
like,
look like what I thought he was going to look
how
like.
can you be such good friends with Dave? He hardly has a sense of humor. And I told him about that. He's like, what do you mean? I'm the funniest guy you know.
Fucking right, man. Hey, fucking right.
And he is.
He
And
totally
he
is. I steal stuff from Dave. Honestly, dude, I started my fucking phone autocorrects excellently to excellently all the time now because I do it on everything. And Dave got me out of that. He was always excellent. Yeah, excellent.
So I'm going to try to hit him up. I was actually going to text him yesterday and ask him to show up here, but I'd like to get Dave on too because he's got
He'd be
so
great.
much stuff.
Well, he's into so many things. He's all of his different businesses,
Video
and
games,
shit that he knows
basketball,
about.
martial arts,
We
bar,
just talk stories about his old man. We talk about his postal career.
bouncing. Oh,
I'm never
Lord.
gonna get him on. No, don't let him hear this before you have him on. Like,
Motherfucker.
you piece of shit.
Yeah.
My one downfall.
Yeah.
Actually,
Okay.
no. Okay, I have to save that for when he's on because I have a really
Yeah.
funny story about that.
Jesus.
Yeah.
There's many people in this city that'll never walk the same after being bounced by Dave Moe. All
Hey,
right.
right? For a nice guy, he's kind of a dickhead.
Yes, he's got his moments. All right. So that's a week, I guess.
I think it's another one.
Love you too.
I love you. Bye.
Peace out.